You have been taught that holding on means you care, that worrying will solve the problem, and that trying harder can make people change. But if that were true, why are you still exhausted? Why do the same people keep hurting you? Why does your mind keep fighting problems it cannot fix and outcomes it cannot control? The truth is, not everything in life is yours to carry. Some people must be released, some problems must be accepted, and some outcomes must be allowed to unfold without your interference. Buddhist teachings reveal that suffering grows when you cling to what is changing, resist what has already happened, and demand control over what was never promised to you. For centuries, these teachings have shown people how to act with wisdom without becoming trapped by expectation, how to love without possession, how to care without losing themselves, and how to face uncertainty without allowing fear to rule their lives. As you listen to these lessons, something inside you will begin to loosen. The conversations you keep replaying will grow quieter. The problems that consume your attention will begin to feel smaller, and the future you keep trying to force will no longer hold your peace hostage. You will understand that releasing does not mean you are weak. Acceptance does not mean you approve, and letting go does not mean you never cared. This is not just another lesson about moving on. This is a path toward releasing people, problems, and outcomes beyond your control. Are you ready? Let us begin. And once you begin to loosen your grip on people, problems, and outcomes, you may discover something unexpected. The hardest thing to release is not always what happened. Sometimes it is what you believed was going to happen. There is a quiet kind of grief that few people talk about. It does not come from losing something you physically held. It comes from losing a future you had already begun to love. You may have pictured years with someone who is no longer beside you. You may have believed a relationship would heal, a family would come back together, a child would understand you, a friend would remain loyal, or a long effort would finally produce the result you deserved. None of it may have happened yet, but inside your mind it had already become real. That is why some endings hurt far more than the moment itself seems to explain. You are not only grieving the person, you are grieving the conversations you thought you would still have, the places you thought you would visit together, the ordinary mornings you believed would come, and the version of yourself you expected to become beside them. You are grieving a life that existed only in hope, but felt as familiar as memory. This can be confusing because other people may not understand the depth of your pain. They may tell you to move on because the plan never became reality. They may say you did not truly lose anything because it had not happened yet. But the heart does not measure loss only by what occurred. It also suffers for what was expected, prepared for, and emotionally welcomed. You may have arranged your choices around that future. You may have stayed patient because you believed someone would change. You may have sacrificed your needs because you expected the relationship to become healthier. You may have endured uncertainty because you thought the final outcome would justify the struggle. When that future disappears, it can feel as though years of hope have collapsed in a single moment. Buddhist wisdom helps us see why this pain becomes so powerful. The mind does not simply create an expectation. It begins to hold that expectation as if it were a possession. It says, "This is how my life will be. This person will stay. This problem will be solved. My effort will produce this reward. My love will be returned in this exact way." Once the mind makes these silent claims, any different outcome feels like something has been stolen. But life never signed the agreement the mind created. This is difficult to accept because expectations often feel reasonable. You may not have been asking for anything grand. Perhaps you only wanted loyalty, peace, understanding, stability, or the chance to grow old beside someone you trusted. These hopes are deeply human, Buddhist teaching does not shame you for having them. It simply asks you to notice the moment when hope changes into ownership. Hope says, "I would be grateful if this happens." Attachment says, "This must happen, or I cannot be at peace." That difference may appear small, but it changes the whole weight of your life. Hope leaves room for reality. Attachment demands that reality follow the path you designed. Hope can adapt. Attachment keeps arguing with what has already changed. When a future you expected disappears, your first instinct may be to search for a way to bring it back. You replay old moments, looking for the exact point where everything went wrong. You wonder whether a different word, a softer response, a stronger boundary, or one more attempt could have saved it. You try to solve the past because part of you believes solving the past will restore the future. But the past is not a door you can reopen by thinking harder. Reflection can teach you, but endless replay only keeps you inside a life that is no longer moving. There is a point where asking, "What can I learn?" becomes healthier than asking, "How can I undo this?" One question helps you grow. The other keeps you emotionally tied to an outcome that has already left your control. Sometimes the future you expected involved another person changing. You saw their potential and built your hope around it. You noticed moments of kindness and believed those moments would become their permanent nature. You heard promises and treated them like proof. You gave them time because you believed patience would eventually awaken the person you knew they could be. But potential is not the same as commitment. A person may have the ability to change and still choose not to. They may understand the pain they cause and continue causing it. They may speak beautifully about a better future while repeating the same behavior in the present. If your peace depends on them becoming someone different, your life remains tied to a decision that is not yours. This does not mean you were foolish for seeing the good in them. It means you are human. Love often sees possibility before it sees limits. Compassion notices the wounded part of someone and wants to believe healing will follow, yet Buddhist compassion must include wisdom. Without wisdom, compassion can become a reason to remain trapped. You can care about who someone might become without sacrificing yourself to their unfinished journey. You can wish them healing without building your future around the hope that they will choose it. You can recognize their good qualities without ignoring the pattern that keeps hurting you. The future you expected may also have been built around fairness. You worked hard, treated people well, remained loyal, prayed, waited, and did what you believed was right. Deep inside, you expected life to reward this. You thought your goodness would protect you from betrayal, disappointment, or loss. Then something happened that did not match your effort. This kind of pain can shake more than your plans. It can shake your trust in life itself. You may ask why you tried so hard if the outcome could still be painful. You may feel cheated because you believed good actions should guarantee good results. Buddhist teaching offers a more stable view. Your actions matter, but they do not control every condition around you. You can plant carefully and still face a storm. You can speak honestly and still be misunderstood. You can love sincerely and still be left. You can prepare wisely and still meet an outcome you never expected. This does not make effort meaningless. It means effort and outcome are not the same thing. Your responsibility is to choose your actions with care. The result is shaped by many forces beyond you. Other people's choices, timing, change, health, chance, circumstances, and causes you may never see. When you measure the value of your action only by the final result, you place your peace in a place you cannot reach. A wiser question is not, "Did everything happen the way I wanted?" It is, "Did I act with honesty, courage, and awareness?" You may not control whether someone stays, but you can control whether you abandon your dignity to keep them. You may not control whether your work is recognized, but you can control whether you acted with care. You may not control whether a problem disappears, but you can decide whether fear will make every day smaller. This is where release begins. It begins when you stop asking the outcome to prove that your effort mattered. The imagined future may also have given you an identity. You were going to be the spouse who finally felt secure, the parent whose family remained close, the person whose sacrifice paid off, the retiree who enjoyed peaceful years, or the one who proved everyone wrong. That picture may have held your sense of meaning. When it collapses, you may not know who you are without it. This is why some people remain attached to painful situations long after they understand the truth. They are not only afraid of losing the person or plan, they are afraid of losing the self they created around it. If the relationship ends, who are they? If the dream changes, what was all the effort for? If the future will not look the way they pictured, what are they supposed to do now? Buddhist wisdom reminds us that the self is not a fixed object. You are not one permanent story. You are a living process, changing from moment to moment. The future you expected was only one possible form of your life. Its ending does not mean your life has ended. It means life will now take a form your earlier mind could not predict. That can feel frightening because the known dream, even when it was uncertain, felt safer than the unknown present. The mind often prefers a painful plan to an open space. At least the plan gave you something to picture. The open space gives you no promises, yet open space is not emptiness. It is possibility without a name. Before something new can enter your life, there may be a period when nothing seems clear. You are no longer living inside the old expectation, but you have not yet discovered what will replace it. This middle place can feel lonely. It can make you question whether letting go was a mistake. Do not rush to fill it. The mind may try to escape the discomfort by returning to the old person, reviving the old plan, or attaching itself quickly to a new promise. But this may only cover the grief instead of healing it. A wounded mind can mistake movement for progress. It may choose anything that removes uncertainty, even if that choice creates another form of suffering. Buddhist practice teaches you to remain present in the space between what ended and what has not yet begun. You breathe, you observe, you allow your feelings to rise without letting them command your next decision. You learn that uncertainty can be survived without being solved immediately. This is not passive. It takes strength to remain still when fear wants you to run backward. You may also need to mourn honestly. Many people try to become spiritual too quickly. They tell themselves everything happens for a reason, that they should be grateful, that attachment causes suffering, or that they must accept what is. These ideas may be useful later, but when used too soon, they can become ways of avoiding pain. True acceptance does not require pretending you are not hurt. You can understand that something was temporary and still miss it. You can know that a person was not right for you and still grieve the future you wanted with them. You can accept reality while admitting that reality has broken your heart. Grief needs honesty more than explanation. You may need to say, "I truly believed this would last." You may need to admit, "I wanted this more than I allowed anyone to see." You may need to acknowledge, "Part of me is still waiting for the life I pictured." These words do not make you weak. They make the hidden loss visible. Pain that is denied does not disappear. It moves into the body, the mood, the sleep, and the way you respond to others. It may become anger, numbness, suspicion, or constant tiredness. You may think you are upset about small things when, underneath them, you are still grieving a future that never arrived. To mourn the expectation, give it a clear ending. You can write down what you believed would happen. Name the moments you had pictured. Name the person you thought you would become. Then gently remind yourself, this was a hope. It was not a promise. That sentence may hurt, but it also begins to free you. You are not erasing the beauty of what you wanted. You are returning it to its proper place. It was a vision created by the mind, not a debt that life failed to pay. There is another reason imagined futures are difficult to release. They often contain only the best parts. The mind creates a polished version of what might have been. It does not include the conflicts that could have continued, the habits that may never have changed, the sacrifices you would still have made, or the new problems that future might have brought. You grieve the dream, not the complete reality. This is why the lost future can appear more perfect after it is gone. Nothing can now happen to disappoint it. It remains untouched inside your imagination. The relationship that never happened cannot show you its ordinary tensions. The opportunity you missed cannot reveal its hidden cost. The path you did not take cannot prove that it also contained difficulty. The mind compares your imperfect present with an edited future. That comparison will always make the present look smaller. To release it, you must stop treating imagination as evidence. You do not know that the future you wanted would have made you happy. You only know that you wanted it. Desire can be sincere without being all-knowing. Buddhist wisdom encourages humility before the unknown. Sometimes what leaves your life creates room for a freedom you would never have chosen because you were too attached to the familiar dream. Sometimes the ending you resisted protects you from years of deeper pain. Sometimes the closed door turns your attention toward a part of yourself you had neglected. You do not need to force a positive meaning onto every loss. Some losses remain painful, some endings never become beautiful. But even when you cannot call the loss good, you can allow your response to become wise. Wisdom may mean you stop measuring your life against the timeline you created years ago. Perhaps you believed you would be married by a certain age, financially secure by another, fully healed by now, surrounded by family, or free from a problem that has lasted too long. Each unmet timeline can become a silent accusation. You look at your life and think, I should be somewhere else. But there is nowhere else you can live except here. The word should often hides an attachment to an old plan. It does not see the conditions you faced, the changes you survived, or the strength it took to reach this moment. It only compares reality with expectation and declares reality wrong. The present may not be what you chose, but it is still where your life is happening. Every hour spent demanding a different past or guaranteed future is an hour taken from the life that remains available now. This does not mean you should stop making plans. Plans can guide action. The problem begins when the plan becomes more important than the living moment. A plan should serve your life. Your life should not become a servant to the plan. When reality changes, wisdom adjusts. It does not cling to an old map while the road disappears. It looks carefully at where it stands and chooses the next honest step. That next step may be very small. It may be making breakfast after a painful night. It may be removing a reminder you are not ready to see every day. It may be telling someone the truth about how much you are hurting. It may be returning to a hobby you abandoned while waiting for another person. It may be making one decision based on your present needs instead of the future you once expected. Small acts return you to your own life. You do not release a future in one dramatic moment. You release it each time your mind travels there and you gently come back. You release it when you stop checking for signs that the old outcome might still happen. You release it when you no longer interpret every silence as a hidden promise. You release it when you stop delaying today while waiting for yesterday's dream to return. This process may happen many times. Some mornings you will feel free. By evening, grief may return. A song, a date, a familiar place, or someone else's happiness may awaken the old picture. Do not judge yourself. Release is not a straight road. The mind revisits what mattered because it is trying to understand the change. Each return is another chance to practice. You can say, "Yes, I wanted that life. It mattered to me. And it is not the life before me now." This statement holds both love and truth. It does not insult the dream, but it does not allow the dream to control the present. Eventually, the memory of what you expected will lose its authority. You may still remember it, but you will no longer organize your days around its absence. It will become one path your mind once pictured, not the only path on which your happiness could have lived. This is one of the deepest forms of freedom. You stop demanding that life become what you once imagined before you allow yourself to participate in it. You no longer postpone peace until a person returns, a problem disappears, or an outcome becomes certain. You begin to notice what is still here. Your breath is here. Your ability to choose is here. The people who truly care for you may still be here. Your capacity to learn, rest, speak, create, help, and begin again is here. There may be simple parts of your life that were hidden while your attention remained fixed on what did not happen. The present is often quiet. It does not compete with the drama of the imagined future. It waits without demanding your attention. When you return to it, you may discover that life has not been standing still. New doors may have opened gently. New strength may have formed inside you. Your values may have become clearer. You may now see that what you once called love was partly fear, that what you called patience was sometimes self-abandonment, or that what you called hope had become refusal to accept the truth. These discoveries are not reasons to blame yourself. They are signs that awareness is growing. You made the best choices you could with the understanding you had then. Now you see more. That is not failure, that is growth. The future you expected may never come, but that does not mean no meaningful future remains. It means you must stop looking for life only in the shape you once chose. Peace may arrive differently. Love may look different. Purpose may appear in a place you previously ignored. Your next chapter may not match the old dream, but it can still hold depth, connection, and dignity. Buddhist teaching does not promise that everything you lose will be replaced. It offers something more dependable, the ability to remain whole even when life does not give you what you expected. Wholeness does not mean you never feel pain. It means pain is no longer the only truth you can see. It means you can carry a scar without building your identity around the wound. It means you can remember the future you wanted without refusing the future that is still possible. You do not have to know what comes next. You only have to stop treating uncertainty as proof that nothing good remains. Let the old future rest. Thank it for what it revealed about your heart. It showed you what you longed for, what you valued, and where you placed your hope. Keep the wisdom, but release the demand. Then turn toward the life that is still breathing in front of you. It may not be the life you expected, but it is still your life. And once you stop asking it to become the past, you may finally see what it is trying to become now. Once you stop demanding that life return to the future you once expected, another truth begins to appear. You may discover that much of your exhaustion did not come only from what you lost. It came from the endless effort to prevent life from changing in the first place. Control can feel like strength. It can look like planning, discipline, protection, responsibility, or wisdom. Yet beneath the need to manage every detail, there is often a frightened mind whispering, "If I do not control this, something painful may happen." That fear can remain hidden for years. You may believe you are simply being careful when you repeatedly check on people, prepare for every possible problem, question every decision, or become upset when plans change. You may tell yourself that you are only trying to avoid mistakes, but careful action and desperate control are not the same thing. Careful action responds to what is real. Desperate control fights what might happen. Careful action prepares, then rests. Desperate control never feels prepared enough. Careful action respects what belongs to you. Desperate control tries to enter areas that belong to time, chance, circumstances, and other people. This difference is important because control is often praised. A person who thinks about every detail may appear responsible. Someone who constantly worries about the family may appear caring. A person who refuses to leave anything uncertain may seem organized. Yet the outside appearance does not always reveal the emotional cost. Inside, such a person may be living in constant tension. Their mind is always searching for what could go wrong. Their body remains ready for danger, even during peaceful moments. They cannot fully enjoy good news because they are already protecting themselves from the possibility that it may change. They find it difficult to trust people because trust requires accepting that another person has freedom. They may call this wisdom, but sometimes it is fear wearing respectable clothing. Buddhist practice asks you to look beneath the surface of your actions. It asks, what is moving you right now? Is it clear understanding, or is it fear demanding certainty? The action itself may look similar. Two people may both create a plan, save money, prepare for an appointment, or speak to someone about a problem. One acts because the situation requires attention. The other acts because anxiety has convinced them that disaster will occur unless they control every possible outcome. The first person can finish the task and return to peace. The second continues thinking long after there is nothing more to do. This is how control becomes suffering. It does not know when to stop. There is nothing wrong with preparation. Buddhist teaching does not ask you to ignore consequences, abandon your duties, or live carelessly. Acceptance is not laziness. Detachment is not neglect. You are still responsible for your choices, your promises, your health, your work, and the way you treat others. The teaching is more balanced. It says, do what can wisely be done, but do not demand that your effort guarantee the result. You can lock your door, but you cannot remove every danger from the world. You can care for your health, but you cannot command your body never to change. You can guide your children, but you cannot make every decision for them. You can communicate honestly, but you cannot force another person to understand. You can work carefully, but you cannot ensure that every opportunity will come to you. This can be uncomfortable because the mind wants a promise. It wants someone to say that if you do everything correctly, nothing painful will happen. Life cannot make that promise. Even the wisest action does not remove uncertainty. It only allows you to meet uncertainty with greater readiness. The frightened mind does not like this. It believes uncertainty itself is dangerous. It treats every unanswered question like an emergency. When someone does not reply, it invents explanations. When a plan changes, it expects the worst. When the future is unclear, it tries to predict every possible ending. The mind believes prediction creates safety. Usually, it creates exhaustion. Thinking about 10 possible problems does not give you 10 times more protection. It often makes you suffer through events that never happen. Your body experiences the tension as though every imagined danger were already present. Your heart beats faster. Your muscles tighten. Your sleep becomes restless. Your attention is pulled away from the moment in front of you. Fear tells you this mental work is necessary. It says, keep thinking, you are close to finding certainty. But certainty does not arrive. The mind creates another question as soon as one question is answered. This is why overthinking is not always a search for truth. Sometimes it is an attempt to control discomfort. You may not truly need more information. You may need the courage to remain peaceful without having all the information. That courage is difficult to develop because control may have protected you before, Perhaps you grew up in an unpredictable home where you had to watch everyone's mood. You learned to notice small changes in voice, expression, or behavior because danger could appear without warning. You became skilled at preparing, pleasing, calming, or preventing conflict. Those habits may have helped you survive. Later, however, the same habits can follow you into situations where they are no longer needed. You may try to read every silence. You may feel responsible for everyone's emotions. You may become uncomfortable when someone is disappointed, even when you have done nothing wrong. You may believe peace depends on keeping everyone pleased. This is not because you are weak. It is because your mind learned that control was connected to safety. Buddhist awareness does not condemn this pattern. It brings kindness to it. Instead of saying, "Why am I like this?" you begin to ask, "What is this part of me afraid will happen?" That question can reveal the hidden fear. Perhaps you fear being abandoned if someone is unhappy with you. Perhaps you fear being blamed when something goes wrong. Perhaps you believe one mistake will destroy everything you have built. Perhaps you fear returning to a painful situation you once survived. When the fear is named, the need for control becomes easier to understand. You may then realize that you are not truly trying to control the event. You are trying to control the feeling you believe the event will create. You want to prevent rejection because you do not want to feel unwanted. You want to prevent failure because you do not want to feel ashamed. You want to prevent illness because you do not want to feel helpless. You want to control another person's behavior because you do not want to face disappointment. The deeper practice is not learning how to guarantee that these feelings never arise. It is learning that you can experience difficult feelings without being destroyed by them. That is inner security. External control says, "Nothing painful must happen." Inner security says, "I will respond wisely if pain comes." External control depends on life remaining predictable. Inner security remains available when life becomes uncertain. This change does not happen through positive thinking alone. You build it through experience. Each time you face a small uncertainty, without rushing to control it, you teach the mind that uncertainty can be tolerated. You allow someone to take time before replying. You make a reasonable plan without checking it repeatedly. You let another adult make a choice you would not make. You accept that a conversation may not go perfectly. You leave a minor problem alone when immediate action is unnecessary. At first, discomfort may rise. Fear may tell you that you are becoming careless. It may urge you to intervene, explain, correct, or prepare again. Pause before obeying it. Take a slow breath and ask, "Is there a useful action available now, or am I only trying to remove uncertainty?" If there is a useful action, take it calmly. If there is nothing helpful to do, practice remaining still. Stillness can feel dangerous to a controlling mind because stillness removes the illusion. That constant effort is keeping life together. Yet life was never held together by your worry. Many things have unfolded without your supervision. The sun rose while you slept. Your body continued breathing without your instruction. People made choices you never knew about. Problems changed through conditions you could not see. Control exaggerates your position. It makes you feel as though everything depends on your constant attention. Responsibility is humbler. It recognizes that you are one part of a much larger movement. You influence life, but you do not command it. This understanding can lift a heavy burden. You no longer have to act like the entire future rests on your shoulders. You can contribute without pretending you are all-powerful. You can care deeply while respecting the limits of your influence. These limits become especially important in relationships. The need to control another person often begins as fear of losing connection. You may try to guide their choices, question their friendships, monitor their habits, or repeatedly advise them. You believe you are protecting them. Sometimes your concern is valid, but concern becomes control when you refuse to accept that the other person has the right to choose. Love does not erase another person's freedom. Even when you know they may make a mistake, you cannot live their life for them. You can speak honestly, you can set boundaries, you can refuse to support harmful behavior, you can offer help when help is welcomed, but you cannot force wisdom into someone who is not ready to receive it. Trying to do so may damage the relationship you hope to protect. The person may begin hiding things from you. They may feel judged rather than supported. Every conversation may become a battle because they are defending their independence while you are defending your fear. You may then tighten your control because their distance frightens you. The tighter you hold, the further they move away. Buddhist compassion offers another path. It allows you to care without possession. You can say, "I love you and your choices belong to you. My boundaries belong to me." This is not emotional distance. It is respectful love. You remain available without becoming responsible for every outcome. You allow people to learn from consequences that you cannot remove. You stop exhausting yourself by trying to prevent every lesson life may need to teach them. There is sadness in this. Sometimes you will see someone walking toward a painful result. You may warn them and still be ignored. Accepting your limits does not mean you feel nothing. It means you do not destroy your own peace trying to control what another person refuses to change. You let their path remain theirs. Control can also appear in the desire to be understood. You may explain yourself again and again because you want another person to see your intentions correctly. When they misunderstand you, you feel an urgent need to change their opinion. There are times when clarification is useful, but repeated explanation can become an attempt to control someone's mind. You cannot choose the meaning another person gives to your actions. You can provide the truth clearly, but you cannot make them accept it. Some people misunderstand because they lack information. Others misunderstand because the false version supports the story they want to believe. Knowing when to stop explaining is an act of freedom. You say what is necessary, you correct what can be corrected. Then you allow the other person to carry their own interpretation. Your character does not become false because someone describes it unfairly. This practice can feel frightening if your identity depends on approval. You may believe that peace will come only when everyone sees you as good, reasonable, loyal, or innocent. Yet no person can control every opinion formed about them. The more you try, the more you become trapped by other people's minds. Buddhist teaching reminds you that your task is to observe your intentions and actions honestly. You correct yourself when you are wrong. You apologize when you cause harm. You learn where learning is needed. But you do not have to place your peace on trial before every person who judges you. Control also hides inside perfectionism. Perfectionism often appears ambitious, but beneath it may live the fear that mistakes will expose you as unworthy. You do not merely want to do something well. You believe it must be flawless before you can feel safe. This creates a painful way of living. Every task becomes a test of your value. Every correction feels like rejection. Every uncertain result becomes proof that you did not prepare enough. You may delay starting because you cannot control how the work will be received. You may spend too long on small details while neglecting your health, relationships, or rest. Even after finishing, you may be unable to enjoy what you have done because you are searching for weaknesses. Excellence and perfectionism are different. Excellence values care, learning, and improvement. Perfectionism demands protection from criticism, embarrassment, and uncertainty. Excellence allows mistakes to teach. Perfectionism treats mistakes as threats. The Buddhist path invites you to work wholeheartedly without turning the work into a measurement of your worth. You give attention to the process. You correct what needs correction. You accept that every human effort contains limits. The goal is not careless work. The goal is work without self-punishment. You may produce something valuable and still receive criticism. You may make a wise decision and still face an unwanted outcome. You may prepare carefully and still miss a detail. A mistake is an event. Fear turns it into an identity. When you release perfectionism, you stop saying, "I made a mistake, so I am a failure." You begin to say, "This showed me something I can improve." That response is calmer and more useful. Control also enters the way you handle time. You may create strict pictures of when certain things should happen. You believe healing should take a certain number of months, success should arrive by a particular age, or a problem should already have ended. When life does not follow the schedule, anxiety grows. You may push yourself harder because you believe delay means failure. You may compare your progress with someone else's and feel left behind. You may lose respect for slow change because it does not match the speed your mind demands. Yet living things grow according to conditions, not impatience. You can water a plant, provide sunlight, and protect the soil. You cannot pull the leaves open with your hands. Your interference would damage what natural growth was already doing. The same is true for many parts of life. Healing cannot always be hurried. Trust may need time. Understanding may arrive gradually. A difficult situation may require patience before the correct action becomes clear. Desperate control pushes because waiting feels powerless. Wise effort understands that waiting can be part of action. You are not doing nothing when you allow conditions to develop. You are refusing to damage the process with unnecessary force. This requires discernment because sometimes action is urgent. Buddhist acceptance should never be used as an excuse to remain in danger, tolerate abuse, ignore illness, or avoid a decision that clearly belongs to you. The question is not whether you should act. The question is, what kind of mind guides the action? Fear acts wildly, even when speed is unnecessary. Wisdom can act quickly without panic. Fear reacts to remove discomfort. Wisdom responds to what the situation actually requires. Before acting, pause long enough to see clearly. Ask yourself, what facts do I know? What am I assuming? What part of this belongs to me? What part belongs to someone else? What useful step is available now? These questions separate reality from fear. Fear may tell you that every possible danger deserves equal attention. Wisdom recognizes which concerns are real, which are unlikely, and which cannot be solved in advance. You do not need to answer tomorrow's questions with today's limited information. When tomorrow comes, you may have new facts, new strength, and new support. Worry tries to solve future events using a mind already tired by the present. It rarely creates the clarity it promises. Return to the step in front of you. If you are facing a health concern, arrange the proper appointment, follow sound advice, and care for your body today. Do not force your mind to live through every possible diagnosis before information arrives. If you are facing a financial problem, look honestly at the numbers. Reduce what can be reduced, seek useful guidance, and make the next responsible decision. Do not spend every night mentally living through complete ruin. If a relationship is uncertain, observe the person's actions, communicate clearly, and protect your boundaries. Do not try to control their heart by becoming whatever you think will make them stay. Wise effort is specific. Fear is endless. Once the responsible action has been taken, practice releasing the result. You may repeat a simple truth. I have done what belongs to me. The rest will unfold through conditions I cannot command. This does not remove all anxiety immediately. The mind may return to the problem many times. Each return gives you another opportunity to release it. You are not trying to force yourself never to worry. That would become another form of control. You are learning not to follow every fearful thought. A thought may say, something terrible will happen. You can answer, that is a possibility my mind is creating. It is not a fact before me. A thought may say, I must fix this now. You can ask, Is action truly needed now, or does fear only want relief? A thought may say, if I relax, everything will fall apart. You can remind yourself, rest does not cause the future, worry does not control it. The mind becomes calmer when you stop treating every thought as an instruction. The body also needs to learn this release. Control is not only mental, it can live in clenched hands, raised shoulders, a tight jaw, shallow breathing, or the inability to sit still. Notice where you hold tension when you feel uncertain. Instead of demanding that the tension disappear, soften around it. Lower your shoulders, unclench your hands, breathe out more slowly than you breathe in. Feel the support beneath your feet or your body. These small actions tell the nervous system, I am here, this moment can be met. You are not pretending that the problem is gone. You are giving yourself enough calm to see it accurately. Panic narrows attention. It makes every problem appear larger and every option smaller. A settled mind can notice choices that fear ignored. This is one reason Buddhist meditation is valuable. Meditation does not give you power over every event. It helps you stop being controlled by your reaction to events. You sit and observe breath, sound, sensation, and thought. Nothing remains fixed. A sound appears and fades. A feeling rises and changes. A thought enters and leaves when it is not fed. Through this simple observation, you begin to understand impermanence directly. You see that discomfort does not remain at the same intensity forever. You do not need to control every feeling because feelings are already moving. You do not need to obey every thought because thoughts are temporary events within awareness. This insight weakens fear's demand for certainty. You begin to trust your ability to meet life one moment at a time. You may still prefer certain outcomes, but your entire peace no longer depends on receiving them. There is great relief in being able to say, I want this, but I do not control it. I will work toward it, but I will not destroy myself trying to guarantee it. This is not giving up. It is releasing the false belief that desperation improves your chances. Desperation often makes wise action harder. It can cause you to speak too soon, accept poor treatment, make rushed decisions, or hold on to plans that no longer make sense. You become so focused on preserving one outcome that you cannot see a healthier possibility. Peace creates flexibility. When you are not forcing life toward one narrow ending, you can adjust when new information appears. You can admit that a plan is not working. You can change direction without treating the change as defeat. You can hear advice without feeling that your control is being threatened. Flexibility is not weakness. It is intelligence responding to reality. A rigid branch breaks in a strong wind. A flexible branch bends and remains rooted. The same is true of the mind. The need to control makes you rigid because every change feels like danger. Acceptance gives you the ability to bend without losing your values. You still know what matters to you. You still protect your boundaries. You still make choices. But you stop confusing one method, one person, or one result with the only possible path to a meaningful life. Sometimes control remains strong because you fear regret. You think, if I stop trying, perhaps I will later discover that one more effort could have changed everything. This fear can keep you trapped in endless attempts. There is a difference between perseverance and refusal to accept evidence. Perseverance continues when there is a real possibility of progress. Refusal repeats the same action despite clear patterns showing that nothing is changing. Wisdom pays attention to results. You may need to ask whether your effort is creating movement or only prolonging suffering. Are both people participating in the repair, or are you carrying the entire relationship? Is the plan adapting to reality, or are you ignoring every warning because you fear letting go? Are you acting from purpose or from terror of admitting that something is beyond you? Stopping does not always mean you failed. Sometimes stopping means you have finally understood the limit of force. You can leave knowing that you acted sincerely with the information you had. You do not need to exhaust every part of yourself before you are allowed to release something. The fear of regret often assumes that there was one perfect choice hidden somewhere and that you were responsible for finding it. Real life is rarely that simple. Decisions are made with incomplete information. Every path includes risks, losses, and possibilities you cannot fully predict. Your task is not to find a choice that guarantees no pain. Your task is to make the clearest choice available and remain willing to meet what follows. This is mature responsibility. It is easy to call yourself responsible when everything succeeds. Deeper responsibility appears when you can accept an outcome without blaming yourself for forces you could not control. You review your actions honestly, you learn what can be learned, you make amends if needed. Then you stop punishing yourself for not possessing knowledge or power no human being could have had. Self-blame can become another form of control. It says, if everything was my fault, then perhaps I had the power to prevent it. Strangely, blame may feel safer than helplessness. It is painful to admit that you acted with love and still could not save the relationship. It is painful to accept that you prepared carefully and still suffered loss. It is painful to know that some events have no simple explanation. The mind may prefer guilt because guilt preserves the illusion of control, but not everything was yours to prevent. Accepting this does not remove responsibility for your real mistakes. It places responsibility where it belongs. You own your actions, but you do not claim ownership of every condition that shaped the result. This balanced view allows growth without cruelty. As control loosens, you may feel exposed. You may wonder who you will become if you are not the person holding everything together. Perhaps others have depended on your constant planning. Perhaps your identity has been built around being the strong one, the fixer, the rescuer, or the person who never allows anything to go wrong. Releasing control may feel like losing your usefulness. Yet, people do not need you to control everything in order for your life to have value. Your presence can matter without your solving every problem. Your love can matter without your preventing every mistake. Your wisdom can matter even when someone chooses another path. You are more than the role of protector. Sometimes the greatest support you can offer is calm presence. You listen without taking over. You help someone think instead of making the decision for them. You allow them to develop strength by facing what belongs to them. This may feel less active, but it can be more loving. Rescuing people from every difficulty may teach them that they cannot cope without you. Supporting them while respecting their ability teaches confidence. The same principle applies to yourself. When you try to remove every uncertainty before moving forward, you send yourself the message that you cannot handle the unknown. Each time you take a wise step without certainty, you build trust in your own resilience. Confidence is not knowing that everything will work out exactly as planned. It is knowing that you can respond when it does not. This kind of confidence is quieter than control. It does not need to predict everything. It does not claim that pain will never come. It knows that awareness, patience, support, and courage will still be available. You begin to understand that safety is not a life without change. Safety is a mind that does not abandon itself when change occurs. The more you practice this, the less fear needs to control. You still prepare, but preparation has an ending. You still care, but care does not become possession. You still hope, but hope leaves room for another outcome. You still act, but action is no longer driven by panic. Your effort becomes cleaner because it is not mixed with the demand for certainty. This is where peace begins to appear. Peace does not come because every problem has been solved. It comes because you no longer treat every unsolved problem as proof that you must remain tense. Peace does not come because everyone behaves as you wish. It comes because their choices no longer determine whether you can remain grounded. Peace does not come because the future is guaranteed. It comes because you stop asking the future to give you permission to breathe today. There will still be moments when fear returns. A sudden change may awaken old habits. You may begin checking, predicting, planning, or interfering before you realize what is happening. Do not use the practice to judge yourself. Notice the pattern and return. Say, "Fear is trying to protect me through control. I can thank it without obeying it." Then look at the moment clearly. Take the action that truly belongs to you. Leave the rest where it belongs. Some outcomes belong to time. Some belong to another person's choices. Some belong to conditions. No one can command. Some will remain unknown until they arrive. You do not have to carry them all in advance. Let effort be sincere, measured, and complete. Let it end when there is nothing more useful to do. Then allow life to move without standing over it like a guard who never sleeps. You were never meant to control every detail. You were meant to meet each detail with awareness. That is the freedom Buddhist practice offers. It does not promise a world where nothing unexpected happens. It teaches you to stop making war with uncertainty. You act when action is needed. You wait when waiting is wise. You release what does not belong to you. You remain present when fear asks you to live inside tomorrow. Slowly, control loses its disguise. You see that it was never pure strength. Much of it was fear asking for a guarantee life could not give. Once you understand this, you no longer need to shame the fear. You can meet it with compassion and say, "I know you want to keep me safe, but I do not need to control everything to survive." Then you breathe, loosen your grip, and return to the one place where your power has always lived, the choice you can make in this moment. And once you stop trying to control every person, problem, and outcome, you may notice another habit that has been quietly draining your peace. Even when the real conversation is over, your mind may continue speaking for hours, days, or even years. You may be washing dishes, lying in bed, driving, or sitting alone when the scene suddenly begins again. You hear their words. You remember their expression. Then your mind creates the answer you wish you had given. You explain yourself more clearly. You expose their dishonesty. You make them understand the pain they caused. In your thoughts, they finally apologize, admit that you were right, or become silent because your words are too powerful to challenge. For a few moments, this may feel satisfying. Then the conversation starts again. The mind changes one sentence, adds another argument, imagines a different reaction, and prepares a new defense. What began as a memory becomes an endless private courtroom where you are the witness, the lawyer, the accused, and the judge. No final decision is ever reached because the other person exists only inside your mind, and the mind can make them answer in 1,000 different ways. This is one of the quietest forms of attachment. You may no longer speak to the person in real life. They may live far away. The relationship may have ended. The event may have happened years ago. Yet they remain active inside you because your mind keeps giving them a voice, a chair, and a place in your daily life. Their physical presence is gone, but the inner conversation keeps the connection alive. Buddhist awareness helps you recognize that remembering a conversation and continuing it are not the same thing. A memory may appear without your permission. The mind naturally brings back unfinished experiences, especially when you felt hurt, embarrassed, misunderstood, or powerless. The problem does not begin when the memory enters. It begins when you sit down inside it and start speaking again. The mind often claims that this rehearsal is useful. It tells you that you are preparing for the next meeting, protecting yourself from another attack, or finding the perfect words that will finally bring closure. Sometimes preparation is reasonable. If you know a difficult conversation is coming, thinking about what you want to say can help you remain calm and clear. But preparation has a purpose and an ending. Mental rehearsal driven by pain has neither. You may tell yourself that you are getting ready, even when no conversation has been arranged. You may prepare explanations for someone who has never asked to understand. You may rehearse an apology you hope to receive from a person who has shown no willingness to take responsibility. You may create a confrontation that would probably never happen in the way your mind presents it. This does not make you foolish. It reveals how deeply the mind dislikes unfinished pain. When something important is left unsaid, the mind tries to complete it. When you are not heard, it creates an audience. When you are unable to defend yourself, it gives you another chance. When someone left without explaining, it invents the explanation. These inner scenes are attempts to restore order to an experience that felt unfair or incomplete. But the relief they offer is temporary because the imagined conversation cannot change what actually happened. No matter how clearly you explain yourself in your mind, the real person has not heard you. No matter how perfectly they apologize in your imagination, they have not taken responsibility in reality. No matter how strongly you defeat them in an imaginary argument, the wound underneath may remain untouched. The mind keeps returning because it is searching for healing in a place where healing cannot be found. You may believe the correct words will release you, yet often the deeper need is not to speak. It is to accept that the conversation may never happen. That acceptance can feel painful. It may seem as though you are giving up your only chance to be understood. You may fear that silence means the other person has won, that their version of the story will stand, or that the wrong they committed will remain unchallenged. But your peace is not a reward they must give you after admitting the truth. If your freedom depends on another person understanding your pain, your freedom remains in their hands. Buddhist practice teaches you to return that power to yourself. It does not ask you to deny what happened. It does not tell you that your words are unimportant. It asks whether continuing the conversation internally is helping you live more wisely now. This is a difficult question because mental arguments can feel active. They create the sense that you are doing something about the injustice. Silence may feel passive. It can seem as though you are allowing the event to remain unresolved. Yet some problems are not solved by more inner speech. They are released by refusing to keep giving them your attention. Attention is energy. Whatever receives it grows stronger inside your experience. When you repeat a conversation, you strengthen the emotional path connected to it. The words become easier to remember. The anger rises more quickly. The imagined faces become more vivid. Each rehearsal teaches your mind that this event is still happening and still requires a response. Your body may react as if the person were standing in front of you. Your breathing changes. Your muscles tighten. Your heart begins to race. You may become angry at someone who is not even in the room. The past enters the present through repetition. This is why you can finish an imaginary argument feeling completely exhausted. Although no external conversation occurred, your body carried the stress of one. You may lose sleep over words that were never spoken and reactions that never happened. The mind calls this preparation, but the body experiences it as conflict. Buddhist awareness begins with noticing the first moment the rehearsal starts. Perhaps you hear yourself saying, "The next time I see them, I will tell them." Perhaps you begin imagining how they would respond. Perhaps you notice your face changing as though you are already speaking. Do not attack yourself for this. The practice is not to become angry because the mind wandered into an old conversation. Anger would only create another struggle. Simply notice a conversation is being created. That wording is important. Instead of saying, "I am arguing with them again," you recognize that the mind is producing an argument. You are the awareness seeing it. You do not have to become every sentence that appears. The thought may continue for a moment. Let it be present without adding the next line. This can feel strange because the mind expects participation. It offers an opening statement and waits for you to continue. When you refuse, there may be a strong urge to finish the argument. You may feel that stopping halfway leaves something incomplete. Allow it to remain incomplete. Not every thought needs a conclusion. An inner conversation survives because you keep supplying both sides. You create your sentence, then imagine their response, then create your answer to that response. When you stop writing the next part, the scene begins to lose its energy. It may return several minutes later. Notice it again. Each time you stop adding to it, you weaken the habit. This is different from forcing the memory away. If you say, "I must not think about this," the mind may become even more focused on it. Resistance tells the mind that the thought is dangerous and important. It begins checking whether the thought is still there, which keeps bringing it back. Buddhist awareness does not fight the thought. It sees it clearly and refuses to feed it. You may say gently, "This conversation is not happening now." Then return to something real. Feel your feet touching the floor. Notice the temperature of the room. Listen to the nearest sound. Bring your attention to your breathing or the task in your hands. These simple details remind the mind that you are here, not inside the old scene. The present may feel less dramatic than the argument. That is precisely why it can heal you. The imaginary conversation is filled with emotional intensity. It gives the mind a problem to solve and an enemy to defeat. The present may contain nothing more than water running, a chair supporting your body, or light entering the room. Yet these ordinary details are real. They bring you back from a conflict that exists only through thought. Some conversations repeat because you wish you had defended yourself differently. Perhaps you remained silent because you were shocked. Perhaps you froze, cried, or could not find the right words. Later, the perfect response came to you, and you began punishing yourself for not saying it at the time. Remember that your past self responded with the awareness and strength available in that moment. It is easy to create a perfect answer when you are no longer under pressure. You now have time, distance, and information you did not have then. Comparing your real response with a later imagined response is unfair. Freezing was not proof of weakness. Silence was not always agreement. Sometimes the nervous system becomes overwhelmed before the mind can organize words. Sometimes leaving the conversation is safer than winning it. Sometimes your body protects you by becoming still. You can learn from the experience without humiliating the person you were. Ask what the event taught you. Perhaps you now recognize a boundary that needs to be stated earlier. Perhaps you understand a kind of behavior you will no longer accept. Perhaps you need one simple sentence ready for a similar situation. Choose that sentence and let the rest go. You do not need to prepare an entire speech. A clear boundary is often short. I will not continue this conversation while I am being insulted. I need time before I respond. That does not work for me. I have explained my decision. I am leaving now. These sentences do not attempt to defeat the other person. They protect your dignity and end unnecessary conflict. The mind may prefer a long speech because it wants emotional justice. It wants the other person to feel the exact weight of what they caused. But long explanations often provide more material for argument. A person committed to misunderstanding, you can twist even the clearest words. Sometimes peace is found in saying less. This can be especially difficult when you are dealing with someone who never allowed you to speak. Perhaps they interrupted, shouted, dismissed your feelings, changed the subject, or turned every concern against you. Your mind may continue the conversation because it is still trying to receive the respect that was missing. You must understand something painful. The person who refused to listen then may still refuse to listen now. The perfect explanation cannot create openness in a closed mind. You may express yourself with honesty, patience, and kindness, yet the other person may continue protecting their pride. They may deny what happened, minimize your experience, or accuse you of being too sensitive. If they benefit from avoiding responsibility, your explanation may feel like a threat rather than an invitation. Recognizing this saves you from endless attempts. You do not have to keep presenting evidence to someone who has chosen not to see. This does not mean truth is unimportant. It means truth does not lose its value because one person rejects it. Your experience remains real even when they refuse to name it. There is also a difference between speaking to be clear and speaking to control the response. You can tell someone how their behavior affected you. You cannot force them to care. You can ask for an apology. You cannot command sincerity. You can explain your boundary. You cannot make them agree that the boundary is fair. Once your words have been spoken clearly, repeated explanation may only deepen your frustration. The mind rehearses because it believes one more version will finally succeed. It changes the tone, rearranges the evidence, and imagines the moment when the other person's expression changes. But if the person's resistance is emotional rather than logical, better wording may not matter. Release begins when you stop trying to create their awakening inside your own head. Another common inner conversation is the apology you hope to receive. You imagine them returning with regret. You hear them naming exactly what they did. They finally understand the nights you spent hurting, the trust you lost, and the ways their choices changed you. This fantasy can be comforting because it offers recognition, yet it can also delay healing. Each time you rehearse the apology, part of you remains waiting for it. You may not notice how much of your life is still facing backward, listening for footsteps that may never return. A sincere apology can be meaningful, but it cannot be the foundation of your recovery. Some people never apologize because they lack the courage to face themselves. Others offer apologies that protect their image rather than acknowledge your pain. Some return only when they want access to you again. Others may genuinely regret their actions but never find the words. You cannot build peace on an event that depends entirely on another person's growth. You can acknowledge what you deserve to hear. You may tell yourself, I deserved honesty. I deserved respect. What happened was painful, and it mattered. These words do not replace accountability, but they end the habit of asking the person who wounded you to become the only source of your healing. Sometimes you may need to write the conversation rather than continue carrying it mentally. Put the words on paper. Write what you wanted to say without sending it. Be honest. Do not polish the sentences or make them acceptable to anyone else. Then read what you wrote and look beneath the anger. What were you truly asking for? Were you asking to be chosen, respected, protected, believed, or valued? Were you trying to make someone admit that your pain mattered? Were you asking for a love they could not give? The hidden need often matters more than the imagined argument. Once you recognize the need, you can begin meeting it in healthier ways. You can protect yourself through boundaries. You can seek understanding from people capable of listening. You can offer yourself the compassion you kept requesting from someone else. After writing, decide what the paper is for. You may keep it as a record of your truth or destroy it as a symbol of release. The purpose is not to create another object you repeatedly revisit. It is to move the conversation out of the endless loop and see it clearly. Some inner conversations are not angry. They are filled with explanations. You may spend hours telling someone why you made a certain choice. You carefully describe everything they failed to understand. You want them to see that you were not selfish, cruel, weak, or ungrateful. This often happens when you have made a decision that disappoints others. Perhaps you stepped away from a relationship, refused a request, changed a family tradition, or chose a path people criticized. Even after making the decision, you may continue defending it in your mind because you do not feel permitted to trust yourself. The rehearsal reveals a deeper question. Am I allowed to choose this if they disapprove? You are. A decision can disappoint someone and still be necessary. A boundary can be misunderstood and still be healthy. You can care about a person's feelings without allowing their feelings to decide your life. The need to explain everything may come from an old belief that your choices are only valid when others agree. Buddhist practice turns your attention inward. It asks whether the choice was made with awareness, honesty, and compassion. If it was, you do not need to win an imaginary trial every night. You may still explain your choice once in real life. Keep the explanation clear and respectful. Then allow disagreement to exist. Not every disagreement must be transformed into understanding. This is one of the most peaceful truths you can accept. Two people can remember the same event differently. Two people can reach different conclusions. You do not always need to correct their version, especially when continued debate changes nothing useful. Silence can become a form of release when speech would only restart the struggle. This silence is not the frightened silence of someone who is afraid to speak. It is the conscious silence of someone who knows when words have completed their purpose. There is strength in saying, "I do not need to continue." The mind may resist because it confuses the final word with victory. It believes the person who speaks last has more power. But the final word often keeps the door open. A reply invites another reply. An explanation creates another question. A defense gives the conflict fresh energy. Sometimes the person who stops participating is the one who becomes free. This applies to real conversations as well as imagined ones. You may receive a message that immediately awakens the old argument. Your fingers may begin writing a long response. Before sending it, pause. Ask yourself what you want the message to accomplish. Are you sharing necessary information, stating a boundary, or making a practical request? Or are you trying to force recognition, punish the person, or make them feel what you felt? A message written in emotional heat often creates more heat. You may save it and return later. When the body is calmer, the necessary part may become much shorter. Sometimes you may realize that no response is needed at all. Not every message deserves access to your peace. The urge to answer immediately can be another attempt to control how you are seen. You fear that. Silence will be interpreted as guilt, weakness, or defeat. But people determined to judge you may judge both your speech and your silence. You cannot control every interpretation. Choose the response that protects your values, not your image. There are times when a conversation truly does need to happen. Buddhist awareness is not an excuse to avoid honest communication. If a relationship matters and both people are capable of listening, speaking may bring understanding. The difference is that you enter the real conversation rather than spending weeks inside imaginary ones. Before speaking, separate observation from accusation. State what happened without exaggeration. Describe how it affected you. Say what you need or what boundary you will maintain. Then give the other person room to answer. Do not rehearse every possible reaction because you cannot predict a living person. They may respond better than you expect. They may respond poorly. Your strength will come from remaining connected to your values, not from memorizing a perfect script. A useful preparation may be simple. I will speak honestly, listen carefully, and leave if the conversation becomes harmful. That is enough. When the conversation ends, let it end. You may review it once to learn. Notice what you expressed clearly and what you may handle differently next time. Then stop trying to rewrite it. A real conversation will always contain imperfect words. People pause, become nervous, forget details, and react emotionally. Expecting yourself to speak with perfect wisdom in every moment creates another reason to replay the scene. The purpose of communication is not perfection, it is honest contact. If repair is possible, another conversation can happen later. If repair is not possible, endless review will not create it. Some of the longest inner conversations occur after betrayal. The mind asks questions because the event destroyed its understanding of the person. You may wonder which memories were real, when the dishonesty began, what signs you missed, and whether anything they said can still be trusted. These questions are natural. Betrayal creates confusion because the past suddenly appears different. Yet there is a point where investigation becomes self-torment. You may never know every detail. Even if you learned the full story, the mind might create new questions. It may ask why the person made each choice, what they were thinking, and whether they ever cared. Information cannot always satisfy emotional pain. Sometimes the clearest answer is the behavior itself. The person chose dishonesty. The pattern harmed you. Trust was broken. These facts may already be enough to guide your next action. The mind wants a complete explanation because it believes understanding the betrayal will prevent all future pain. But no explanation can remove uncertainty from every relationship. You learn what warning signs you ignored, strengthen your boundaries, and become more attentive without turning suspicion into your permanent way of living. Do not allow one person's dishonesty to keep speaking through every future connection. When you repeatedly rehearse a painful conversation, the person's voice may begin to mix with your own. Their criticism may become your inner criticism. You may hear their words whenever you make a mistake or try something new. This is how difficult people can remain inside you long after they leave. Buddhist awareness helps you ask, whose voice is this? Perhaps the thought says you are never good enough, too sensitive, difficult to love, or incapable of making wise choices. Notice whether this belief began with someone who repeatedly dismissed or controlled you. Recognition creates distance. You can say, "This is a learned voice. It is not the truth of who I am." Do not begin another argument with the voice. You do not need to prove it wrong every time it speaks. Notice it, name it, and choose not to follow it. A thought loses authority when you stop treating it as a command. Replace the argument with direct experience. If the mind says you are incapable, remember the actions you are taking now. If it says you cannot live without someone, notice that you are already breathing, choosing, and continuing. Reality becomes the answer, not another speech. The goal is not to win against every painful thought. It is to stop giving each thought a stage. As the mental conversations become quieter, you may initially feel emptiness. The arguments took up time and emotional space. Without them, you may not know what to think about. Let that space remain open. You do not need to fill it immediately with new worries, distractions, or fantasies. Sit with the quiet. Listen to the world around you. Allow the nervous system to discover that nothing needs to be answered right now. Silence may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Within that silence, grief may appear. Anger often stood guard over sadness. The imaginary arguments gave you strength and kept you from feeling the deeper loss. When you stop debating, you may finally feel how disappointed, rejected, or lonely you were. This is not a setback. It means you have reached the feeling beneath the words. Let yourself feel it without building another story. Notice where it lives in the body. Breathe gently. You may say, "This is sadness," or "This is the pain of not being understood." Feelings move when they are allowed to be felt. Stories keep them active by creating new reasons, accusations, and possibilities. You do not have to solve sadness. You let it pass through with kindness. Over time, the person will occupy less space inside you. You may remember what happened without hearing the entire conversation again. Their name may no longer change your breathing. You may see them or receive a message without immediately preparing a defense. This is not forgetting. It is freedom from repetition. The event remains part of your history, but it stops becoming a daily experience. You may even recognize that some conversations were never yours to finish. Another person's refusal to apologize belongs to them. Their misunderstanding belongs to them. Their need to defend their actions belongs to them. You do not have to carry their unfinished work inside your mind. Return their part silently. Say, their choices are theirs. My healing is mine. Then bring your attention back to the life that is still happening. There are people in front of you who deserve your presence. There are tasks that need your care. There are quiet pleasures the mind cannot notice while it is arguing with the past. A meal loses its taste when you are mentally confronting someone. A peaceful evening disappears while you explain yourself to an imaginary audience. A person who loves you may sit nearby while your attention remains trapped with someone who hurt you. This is part of the hidden cost. The difficult person does not only occupy your memory, they take time from people and moments that never harmed you. Releasing the inner conversation is therefore not only something you do for yourself, it is a way of becoming available to the life and relationships that remain. You begin listening more fully. You notice small details. Your face softens. Your body rests. Energy once spent defending yourself becomes available for living. The mind may still return to the old scene occasionally. Do not measure healing by whether the thought ever appears again. Measure it by how quickly you recognize it and how gently you return. At first, you may spend an hour inside the conversation before noticing. Later, you may notice after 10 minutes. Eventually, you may hear the first imaginary sentence and decide not to continue. That is progress. You are building a new habit, the habit of not attending every argument to which your mind invites you. You do not need to answer all accusations, even imagined ones. You do not need to explain every choice. You do not need to receive every apology in order to move forward. You do not need to create the perfect ending to a conversation that life has already ended. There is dignity in allowing some words to remain unsaid. There is wisdom in understanding that speech cannot repair every wound. There is freedom in no longer needing to win inside your own head. Let the conversation become quiet. Let the other person leave the room of your mind. Let the chair they occupied remain empty. You are not losing your voice. You are choosing where your voice deserves to be used. Use it to speak truth when truth can serve a purpose. Use it to protect your boundaries. Use it to offer kindness, ask for help, express love, and create something meaningful. Do not spend it endlessly answering people who are no longer listening. The silence that follows may once have felt like defeat. Now it can become peace. In that silence, no one is accusing you. No one is demanding an explanation. No one is interrupting. There is only the breath entering, the breath leaving, and the present moment asking nothing from you. Stay there. The conversation does not need one more sentence. Your life is ready to continue. And when the conversations inside your mind finally begin to grow quiet, another question often rises from the silence. What do you do with the person who caused the pain? Do you forgive them, keep your distance, or somehow try to do both? Many people remain trapped because they believe forgiveness means opening the same door that nearly broke them. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Some people think it means returning to the relationship, restoring trust, answering every message, accepting another apology, or pretending the past no longer matters. They believe that if they choose distance, they must still be angry. They believe that if they truly forgive, they should welcome the person back into their life. This belief can create deep confusion. You may want to release the anger, but you do not want to return to the same pain. You may wish the person well, but you no longer feel safe around them. You may understand why they behaved as they did, but understanding does not erase the damage. Part of you wants peace, while another part fears that peace will require you to surrender the boundary that protected you. Buddhist wisdom offers a clearer path. It teaches that inner release and outer closeness are not the same decision. You can free your heart from hatred without giving someone renewed access to your life. You can stop wishing them harm while still choosing not to sit at the same table. You can release the emotional burden without restoring the relationship. Forgiveness is about what you stop carrying. Reconciliation is about whether two people can safely rebuild. These are different processes. Forgiveness can happen within one person. Reconciliation requires honesty, responsibility, change, patience, and effort from both sides. You may be ready to let go while the other person remains unwilling to admit what happened. You may no longer hate them, yet still see no evidence that returning would be wise. This does not make your forgiveness incomplete. It means your forgiveness has been joined by discernment. Discernment is the ability to see clearly without allowing guilt, fear, nostalgia, or pressure to make the decision for you. It asks not only whether you still care, but whether the relationship has become safe, respectful, and truthful. It looks at patterns rather than promises. This matters because words can create hope, but patterns reveal character. A person may say they have changed. They may cry, apologize, speak about regret, and promise that everything will be different. Their emotion may be sincere in that moment, yet sincerity in one moment does not always become lasting change. Real change becomes visible through repeated action. It shows itself in how the person responds when they are disappointed, corrected, challenged, or denied what they want. It appears in whether they respect your boundaries without punishing you. It appears in whether they take responsibility without blaming your reaction. It appears in whether they make better choices when no one is watching. Forgiveness does not require you to ignore the absence of these signs. You are allowed to believe that someone feels sorry while also recognizing that sorrow alone may not make the relationship safe. Regret can be real, but regret is not the same as transformation. A person may miss you without understanding why they lost access to you. They may want relief from guilt more than they want to repair the harm. When you forgive, you are not required to become the place where they escape the consequences of their choices. Consequences are not revenge. Sometimes distance is the natural consequence of repeated betrayal, disrespect, manipulation, or neglect. The relationship changed because trust was damaged. Forgiveness cannot return trust to its earlier state by force. Trust is not a moral gift you owe someone because they apologized. It is confidence built through experience. Once it is broken, it may take a long time to return. Sometimes it never returns because the person does not create the conditions that trust needs. You can forgive without pretending to trust. You can say, "I no longer want to carry anger toward you, but I cannot depend on you in the same way." That is not cruelty. It is honesty. Many people struggle with this because they were taught that a good person always gives another chance. But another chance is not always the same as another entrance into your private life. You may give someone a chance to show change from a distance. You may allow limited contact while protecting your personal information, time, home, finances, or emotional energy. You may decide that kindness is possible, but closeness is not. Relationships do not have only two positions, complete access or complete hatred. There are many wise distances. You may be able to greet someone respectfully without sharing your struggles with them. You may attend the same family gathering without sitting beside them. You may respond only to necessary messages. You may choose written communication instead of phone calls. You may decide that contact should happen only in the presence of another trusted person. These choices are not signs that you have failed to forgive. They are ways of matching access to reality. The amount of access someone receives should be connected to the level of trust they have shown themselves able to handle. This is especially important when the person uses forgiveness as a tool to regain control. They may say, "If you had truly forgiven me, you would answer." They may accuse you of holding a grudge because you refuse to return. They may use spiritual language to shame you into becoming available again, but forgiveness is not permission for continued harm. A person who respects your healing will not demand that you prove it by abandoning your boundary. They may feel sad about the distance, but they will understand that their actions created it. They will not insist that your peace must include their comfort. When someone pressures you to reconcile quickly, pay attention. They may be more interested in removing the consequence than repairing the relationship. They may want the appearance of forgiveness without the work that makes closeness possible. They may want you to stop mentioning the past while they continue the same behavior. Buddhist compassion does not mean allowing yourself to be used. Compassion sees suffering clearly. It recognizes that harmful people often act from fear, ignorance, craving, insecurity, or old wounds. But seeing the cause of a behavior does not make the behavior harmless. You can understand that someone was wounded and still refuse to be wounded by them again. You can recognize their pain without becoming responsible for absorbing it. This balance is difficult because empathy can weaken boundaries when it is not joined with wisdom. You may think, they had a hard childhood, they are under stress, they do not know any better, or they are afraid of being abandoned. These things may be true, but an explanation is not an excuse. A person's history can help you understand their actions. It does not require you to accept the consequences of those actions forever. Their pain deserves compassion, but so does yours. Your well-being should not become the price of proving that you understand them. Sometimes people return because they know you are compassionate. They know you feel guilty when they suffer. They may speak about loneliness, illness, regret, or how much they need you. Your heart may soften, and you may begin to question the boundary you worked hard to create. This is where you must distinguish compassion from rescue. Compassion says, "I do not want you to suffer." Rescue says, "I must remove your suffering, even if doing so harms me." You are not required to return to an unhealthy relationship because the other person is lonely. Their loneliness may be painful, but it does not automatically make you the correct solution. You may care without becoming available in the old way. You may offer a kind word without reopening emotional dependence. You may direct them toward other support. You may pray for them, think of them with goodwill, or wish them healing without becoming part of their daily life. Distance can still contain compassion. In fact, distance may sometimes be the most compassionate choice for both people. If returning allows the harmful pattern to continue, the relationship teaches no one anything. The other person avoids accountability, and you remain trapped in the cycle. A boundary can become a mirror. It shows the person that their choices have real effects. Whether they learn from that mirror is not yours to control, but removing the boundary too quickly may hide the truth they need to face. You may also need distance because your own healing is still fragile. Even if the person has changed, being near them may awaken fear, anger, confusion, or old habits in you. This does not mean you are unforgiving. Healing has its own pace. You may understand the past intellectually while your body still remembers the danger. A voice, expression, place, or type of message may cause tension before you can explain why. Your nervous system may need a longer period of safety before it stops expecting the old pain. Do not force closeness to prove that you are healed. Healing is not measured by how quickly you can sit beside the person who hurt you. It is measured by whether you can live with greater freedom, clarity, and self-respect. Sometimes the strongest sign of healing is knowing that you do not need to test yourself. You do not have to return to the fire to prove that the burn has closed. There is also a difference between forgiving a single mistake and returning to a repeated pattern. Everyone can fail. People speak carelessly, make selfish choices, misunderstand, or react badly. A healthy relationship can often repair these moments when the person takes responsibility and changes their behavior, but repetition changes the meaning. When the same harm continues after many discussions, apologies, and chances, it is no longer only a mistake. It has become a pattern. The apology may temporarily calm the conflict, but it does not alter the behavior. A repeated apology without changed action becomes part of the cycle. You may forgive each event while still deciding that the pattern can no longer remain close to you. This is not a failure of patience. Patience does not mean waiting forever while someone refuses to grow. Patience gives change time to become visible. It does not deny what becomes visible. Buddhist teachings encourage attention to cause and effect. Certain actions produce certain conditions. If someone repeatedly lies, trust becomes weak. If someone repeatedly disrespects boundaries, closeness becomes unsafe. If someone repeatedly uses your kindness against you, access becomes limited. This is not punishment. It is the natural movement of cause and effect. The person may dislike the result, but their discomfort does not make the boundary wrong. You may still feel guilty, especially if the person is a family member. Family ties can make distance feel cruel because society often teaches that family should always remain close. People may tell you that life is short, that blood is thicker than water, or that you will regret not reconciling. These words can be powerful because they awaken fear, yet closeness based only on obligation is not always loving. A family title does not automatically create safety. A parent, sibling, child, or relative can still behave in ways that disturb your well-being. You are allowed to consider the quality of the relationship, not only the name of it. This does not mean you make distance your first response to every disagreement. It means family connection does not remove the need for respect. You may choose limited contact rather than complete separation. You may set clear rules about what topics are discussed, how long visits last, or what behavior ends the interaction. The correct distance depends on the reality you are facing. There is no single boundary that fits every relationship. The important question is whether the boundary helps you remain safe, truthful, and peaceful without being driven by revenge. Revenge seeks to make the other person suffer. A boundary seeks to stop the suffering from continuing. The outside action may sometimes look similar. You may stop answering calls or decline invitations, but the inner intention matters. If you refuse contact because you want the person to panic and chase you, silence becomes another form of control. If you refuse contact because every interaction returns you to harm, silence becomes protection. Buddhist awareness asks you to examine the intention beneath the boundary. Are you creating distance to care for your life, or are you using distance to punish? Are you releasing the relationship or waiting for the other person to become desperate enough to surrender? Be honest with yourself. You may find that both motives are present. Part of you wants peace, while another part wants them to feel the loss. Do not shame that injured part. It is natural to want someone to understand what they cost you, but do not let that desire guide your decisions. A clean boundary does not require the other person to suffer before it feels successful. Its success is measured by the stability it creates in your life. You know the boundary is serving you when your days become quieter, your thoughts become clearer, and you no longer organize your behavior around their reaction. Forgiveness also becomes cleaner when you stop waiting for them to notice it. You do not need to announce that you have forgiven someone. Sometimes telling them may be meaningful, especially when both people are engaged in healthy repair. But in other cases, the announcement can be misunderstood as an invitation. You may forgive privately. You may decide within yourself, I will no longer rehearse hatred. I will no longer wish for your destruction. I will no longer allow this injury to shape every part of who I become. That inner decision may be enough. The other person does not need to witness your release for it to be real. This private forgiveness can protect you from reopening contact simply to communicate a spiritual decision. Sometimes the desire to tell someone you forgive them is actually a hidden wish to restart the relationship, receive an apology, or hear that they still care. Look carefully at what you hope will happen after the message is sent. If you expect nothing, you may still choose to speak. But if your peace depends on their response, the wound may still be asking for contact rather than release. There is no shame in recognizing that you are not ready. Forgiveness cannot be forced. People often try to forgive because they want the pain to end quickly. They repeat spiritual words while anger continues underneath. They tell themselves they should be over it. They become frustrated when memories return. But forgiveness is not a switch you turn on. It may begin as a willingness rather than a completed feeling. You may say, I am not free from anger yet, but I no longer want anger to rule my life. That is an honest beginning. You can stop feeding revenge before warmth appears. You can choose not to speak cruelly about the person while still feeling hurt. You can refuse to repeat the harm without pretending the wound has closed. Forgiveness may arrive in layers. First, you stop wishing for punishment. Later, you stop needing the person to understand. Eventually, you can remember what happened without losing the peace of the entire day. You do not need to rush these stages. The deepest forgiveness often happens quietly, long after the relationship has ended. One day, you may realize that you have not thought about the person for several days. Another day, their name may come up without changing your breathing. You may hear that they are doing well and feel no need to destroy that good news. This does not mean you want them back. It means the emotional chain has weakened. The purpose of forgiveness is not to restore the old relationship. It is to stop the past from controlling the present. This is why forgiveness is primarily for your freedom. Not because the other person deserves to escape accountability, but because you deserve to stop carrying them everywhere. Anger can make you feel connected to the person even after love has ended. You may think about them whenever something good or bad happens. You may compare new people with them. You may shape your choices around proving that they did not destroy you. In this way, anger continues the relationship. Forgiveness loosens that bond. It allows you to live without making every achievement a message to them. You no longer need to succeed so they regret losing you. You no longer need to appear happy so they feel small. You begin making choices because those choices serve your life. This is true release. There may still be sadness. Forgiveness does not remove the grief of what the relationship could have been. You may wish the person had chosen differently. You may miss their good qualities while knowing the whole relationship was harmful. Human beings are not simple. A person can be kind in one moment and cruel in another. They can create beautiful memories and still become unsafe. Recognizing the good does not require you to deny the harm. Recognizing the harm does not require you to erase every good memory. You are allowed to hold a complete picture. This balanced view can make forgiveness more possible because you no longer need to turn the person into a monster in order to justify your distance. You can admit that they were wounded, complicated, loving in some ways, and harmful in others. Your boundary does not depend on proving they are entirely bad. It depends on whether the relationship is healthy for you. This is an important freedom. Many people remain trapped because they think they can leave only if the other person is completely terrible. When they remember a kind act, they question everything. But one kind act does not erase a harmful pattern. You do not need to hate someone to decide that closeness is unwise. You can leave with a soft heart and a clear mind. That softness does not mean you become available again. It means bitterness no longer controls how you see the world. Without forgiveness, one painful relationship can affect every relationship that follows. You may become suspicious of kindness, afraid of closeness, or ready to leave before anyone has the chance to hurt you. The old person may be gone, yet their behavior continues shaping your future. Forgiveness helps you separate the past from the present. You say, "That person broke my trust, but not everyone is that person." This does not mean you become careless. You pay attention. You allow trust to grow slowly. You notice whether words and actions match, but you do not make a new person answer for an old person's choices. That is part of protecting your future without allowing fear to control it. Forgiveness also includes forgiving yourself. You may be angry that you stayed too long, believed another promise, ignored a warning, or reopened the door before. You may call yourself foolish for hoping. This self-anger can become heavier than the original injury. You look back with knowledge you did not have then and judge the person who was still trying to love, understand, or survive. You forget how confusing the situation felt while you were inside it. Offer your past self the compassion you now understand the other person may never have offered. You were working with limited information. You wanted to believe the relationship could improve. You may have been afraid, attached, financially dependent, emotionally exhausted, or trained to place other people's needs before your own. Your delayed boundary does not mean you deserve the harm. Forgive yourself for learning slowly. Some lessons become clear only after the pattern repeats. This is painful, but it is human. Wisdom often arrives through experience rather than warning. You can use what you learned without continuing to punish yourself for not knowing it earlier. Self-forgiveness strengthens the boundary because guilt often pulls people back into harmful relationships. When you feel ashamed for leaving, you may return just to escape the discomfort. When you forgive yourself, you no longer need the other person to approve your decision. You can say, "I wish I had protected myself sooner, but I am protecting myself now." That is enough. There may also be pressure from people around you. Friends or relatives may encourage reconciliation because the conflict makes them uncomfortable. They may want family gatherings to become easier. They may think your boundary creates division. Remember that people who did not live through the relationship may not understand its cost. They see the distance. You remember what made the distance necessary. You can listen to their concern without handing them authority over your decision. You do not need to explain every detail, especially if the information is private. A simple answer may be enough. "I am not holding hatred, but distance is still the healthiest choice for me." Those who respect you may not fully agree, but they will not force the issue. Some people may continue pressuring you. In that case, the boundary may need to include them as well. You can say that the topic is not open for further discussion. Protecting your peace may require refusing repeated debates about why you protect your peace. Forgiveness becomes difficult when people expect it to look dramatic. They imagine a tearful meeting, a long embrace, or a complete restoration. But healing is often much quieter. It may look like deleting an angry message before sending it. It may look like seeing the person's name and choosing not to investigate their life. It may look like speaking of them without cruelty. It may look like allowing a memory to pass without restarting the old pain. These small moments are real forgiveness. You are choosing not to continue the harm within yourself. Buddhist practice often speaks of loving kindness, but loving kindness does not require physical nearness. You may wish that the person becomes free from the ignorance that caused them to hurt others. You may hope they find wisdom, honesty, and peace. This wish can exist from a safe distance. You are not wishing them back into your life. You are refusing to poison your own heart by wanting them to remain broken forever. Hatred can feel like protection because it keeps the injury visible. You may fear that if anger fades, you will forget the lesson and become vulnerable again. But wisdom does not disappear when hatred disappears. You can remember clearly without remaining angry. In fact, a calm mind often sees the lesson more accurately. Anger may exaggerate certain details and hide others. Clarity remembers the pattern without needing emotional fire to keep it important. Write down what you learned if necessary. Name the behaviors you will recognize sooner. Name the boundaries you will establish. Name the parts of yourself you will no longer abandon to maintain connection. Then let the lesson protect you instead of letting anger protect you. Anger is exhausting. Wisdom is sustainable. You may wonder whether refusing reconciliation makes you cold. Notice how quickly kindness toward yourself is judged as coldness when others are used to your availability. A boundary can feel cruel to someone who benefited from your lack of one. Their reaction does not define your heart. You can be gentle and firm at the same time. You can speak without insult while refusing the request. You can acknowledge their feelings without changing your answer. I understand that this hurts you. My decision remains the same. This sentence contains both compassion and self-respect. You do not need to become harsh in order to be clear. Harshness often creates guilt later. Calm firmness allows you to leave the interaction without feeling that you betrayed your values. The person may still accuse you of cruelty. Accept that you cannot control their description of your boundary. Your responsibility is to make the decision honestly, not to make everyone approve it. There are situations where reconciliation may become possible. The person may take full responsibility, respect your space, seek help, and show lasting change. You may feel stable enough to consider limited contact. Even then, you do not have to return to the old level of closeness immediately. Repair can happen slowly. Trust can be rebuilt in small amounts. A short conversation may come before a long visit. Public meetings may come before private ones. Practical topics may come before vulnerable ones. Do not let the person rush the process because they are eager to feel forgiven. Your nervous system and judgment deserve time. Observe what happens when you say no, ask for space, or express discomfort. A changed person will not be perfect, but they will show greater willingness to listen, repair, and respect your pace. If the old pressure, blame, or manipulation returns, you have received useful information. You are allowed to step back again. Reopening the door does not mean you lose the right to close it. Forgiveness is not a permanent contract requiring you to tolerate future harm. Every stage of contact can be reviewed. Sometimes, however, the wisest choice is permanent distance. Some relationships have caused too much damage. Some people remain dangerous, dishonest, or unwilling to change. Some doors protect your life precisely because they remain closed. You may feel sad about this for a long time. Sadness does not mean the decision is wrong. A necessary choice can still hurt. You may love someone and know that you cannot safely live close to them. Love does not always lead to reunion. Sometimes love must accept a boundary that longing dislikes. This is one of the most mature forms of letting go. You stop asking whether the person is completely unworthy of love. You ask whether closeness between you is wise. These are different questions. They may still deserve compassion as a human being. They may still have good qualities. They may still be loved by others. None of this requires you to reopen the door. Your life is not the place where every person must be given unlimited opportunity. You are responsible for the conditions you allow around your mind, body, home, and spirit. Peace needs protection. A garden can welcome sunlight and rain while still needing a fence. The fence does not hate the animals outside it. It simply protects what is growing within. Your boundary can serve the same purpose. It does not have to be built from anger. It can be built from understanding. You know what happens when certain behavior enters your life. You know how long it takes to recover. You know what you are trying to grow now. The closed door is not always a sign of resentment. Sometimes it is a sign that you have finally chosen peace over repeated disturbance. As forgiveness deepens, you may stop checking whether the other person has changed. Their growth becomes their responsibility. You no longer follow their life, search for news about them, or ask others what they are doing. This is another form of distance. Physical separation alone is not enough if your attention remains constantly turned toward them. You may have closed the door while still looking through the window every day. Inner release means turning back toward your own life. What needs your care now? What relationships feel safe? What parts of yourself were neglected while you managed the conflict? What quiet joys can return when your energy is no longer spent guarding against the next injury? Forgiveness creates space. Use that space well. Do not fill it with another version of the same pattern simply because familiarity feels comfortable. Let your new boundaries teach you what healthier connection feels like. Notice how peaceful it is when words match actions, when you do not have to defend your feelings, and when care does not come with fear. These experiences will help you understand why the old door needed to remain closed. One day you may think of the person and feel neither the desire to return nor the desire to punish. You may simply understand that your paths separated because continuing together was no longer healthy. That quiet understanding is enough. You do not need a final meeting. You do not need a perfect apology. You do not need to prove that you have forgiven. Your life will reveal it. It will show in the way you no longer carry the anger into every room. It will show in the way you protect yourself without becoming cruel. It will show in the way you remain capable of love without giving access blindly. Forgiveness has not made you weaker. It has removed the poison while leaving the lesson. You can release the person from your hatred without releasing them from the consequences of their behavior. You can wish them healing without becoming their healer. You can honor the good that once existed without returning to what became harmful. The door may stay closed, and your heart may still become free. That is not incomplete forgiveness. That is forgiveness guided by wisdom. The closed door may protect your peace, but even after you choose distance, another fear can remain. You may wonder whether releasing the person means they have escaped too easily. Part of you may believe that if you stop carrying the anger, their actions will somehow become acceptable. This is where many people become emotionally trapped. They do not remain attached because they still want the relationship. They remain attached because they want justice. They fear that moving forward will erase the seriousness of what happened. They believe their pain is the final evidence that the wrongdoing mattered, so they continue carrying it like a witness who is never allowed to leave the courtroom. But your suffering is not the punishment another person must receive. What they did does not become right because you stop thinking about it. The truth does not change when your anger becomes quieter. The past does not disappear because you decide to live again. Release is not an agreement with the person who hurt you. It is an agreement with yourself that their actions will not continue controlling your inner life. This distinction is important. Approval says, what happened was acceptable. Release says, what happened was wrong, but I will not let it keep happening inside me. You can hold someone responsible without allowing their behavior to occupy every hour of your day. You can remember the lesson without reopening the wound. You can speak honestly about what happened without building your entire identity around it. Buddhist detachment is often misunderstood as indifference. People think it means becoming cold, pretending not to care, or acting as though nothing affected you. But true detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to become chained to a feeling forever. You may still know that the action was dishonest, cruel, selfish, or careless. You may still feel sadness when the memory returns. You may still maintain strong boundaries. Detachment simply means you stop allowing the person's choice to decide who you will become next. This can feel unfair at first. You may think, why should I be the one doing the work of healing when they cause the damage? That question is understandable. You did not ask for the wound, yet you are the one who must care for it. But healing is not a service you perform for the person who hurt you. It is something you do because you deserve to be free. If you refuse to heal until they suffer enough, apologize properly, or understand the damage, your recovery remains dependent on their actions. The person who already harmed you continues holding the key to your emotional future. Release takes that key back. It says, "You may never understand what you did, but I understand what it cost me. You may never repair it, but I will still rebuild my life. You may never feel the regret I believe you should feel, but I will not spend the rest of my years waiting for your conscience to awaken." This is not weakness. It is the moment you stop making your freedom dependent on the moral growth of someone else. There is also a difference between responsibility and revenge. Responsibility allows consequences to remain. Revenge needs the other person to hurt because you hurt. The desire for revenge can seem powerful because it gives anger a direction. You may picture the day when the person loses what they valued, experiences betrayal, or finally understands your pain. You may hope life teaches them the lesson they refused to learn from you. These thoughts can bring temporary satisfaction, but they keep your attention tied to their future. You are still watching them, still waiting, still measuring your peace by what happens to them. In this way, revenge continues the relationship. The person may no longer speak to you, yet your mind remains involved in their life. You wonder whether they are happy, whether their new relationship will fail, whether others will discover their true nature, or whether they regret losing you. Your body may have left, but your attention is still following them. Release means allowing their consequences to belong to life, law, community, conscience, and the natural results of their behavior. You do not need to become the keeper of their punishment. This does not mean you avoid necessary action. If someone has committed a serious wrong, you may report it, seek protection, preserve evidence, tell the truth, or use proper legal and social channels. Detachment does not require silence when speaking can prevent further harm. But necessary action is different from emotional obsession. You can take a clear step without allowing the situation to consume your identity. You can pursue justice without turning hatred into your permanent home. You can protect yourself and others while refusing to become shaped by the same cruelty you oppose. Buddhist teaching encourages right action. Right action is guided by clarity rather than the desire to destroy. It asks what will reduce harm, reveal truth, establish safety, and prevent the pattern from continuing. Anger may be present, but anger does not have to lead. This matters because intense anger can make every action feel justified. You may speak in ways that later disturb your conscience. You may expose private information that has nothing to do with the wrongdoing. You may attack people connected to the person. You may try to ruin every part of their life, not only address the harm they caused. At that point, justice has become revenge. Revenge promises relief, but it often leaves another wound. Even when the person suffers, you may not feel the peace you expected. Their pain cannot return the time you lost, restore the trust that was broken, or turn the past into something different. You may then need a larger punishment to feel satisfied. This is why revenge has no natural ending. It asks the outside world to repair an inner injury through another person's suffering. But inner wounds do not close simply because someone else begins to bleed emotionally. Release turns your attention toward what can actually heal. Perhaps you need to grieve. Perhaps you need to rebuild confidence, repair your finances, seek support, strengthen your boundaries, or learn how the harmful pattern entered your life. These actions restore what was damaged. Watching for the other person's downfall does not. Sometimes you may hold on because you fear forgetting. You believe that if anger fades, you may become careless and allow the same thing to happen again. The pain feels like a guard standing at the door of your memory, but anger and wisdom are not the same. Anger shouts, "Never trust anyone again." Wisdom says, "Let trust grow through consistent behavior." Anger says, "Everyone will hurt you." Wisdom says, "Pay attention to patterns, but do not accuse the innocent." Anger says, "You were foolish." Wisdom says, "You now understand what you did not understand then." The lesson can remain after the emotional fire becomes quiet. In fact, wisdom often becomes clearer when anger settles. While you are overwhelmed, everything may appear completely good or completely bad. You may blame yourself for every sign you missed, or blame the other person for every difficulty you now face. A calmer mind sees more accurately. It can identify the exact behavior that caused harm. It can recognize where a boundary was weak, where a warning was ignored, or where manipulation created confusion. It can also see the strength you showed, the efforts you made, and the moments when you acted with courage. This balanced understanding protects you better than permanent rage. You may write down what you learned, so you do not feel you must keep the pain alive to remember it. Name the behavior you will no longer accept. Name the signs you will notice sooner. Name the values that will guide future relationships. Then allow the memory to become information rather than a daily punishment. There is also a fear that releasing someone will make other people believe the action was acceptable. Perhaps family members want everyone to move on. Perhaps friends tell you not to discuss it. Perhaps the person acts as though nothing serious happened. You may feel responsible for keeping the truth visible. Speaking the truth can be necessary, especially when silence protects harmful behavior. But there is a difference between telling the truth and repeatedly proving that you were hurt. You do not have to display your suffering forever to make your experience believable. The truth remains true even when you smile again. The harm remains serious even when you sleep peacefully. Your healing does not become evidence against you. Some people may misunderstand your calmness. They may say the situation could not have been severe because you appear strong. Others may accuse you of exaggerating if you do not remain visibly broken. Do not shape your healing around their expectations. You are not required to perform pain in order to protect the truth. You can state what happened clearly. You can refuse false versions of the story. You can correct harmful lies when correction serves a purpose. Then you can return to your life without explaining yourself every day. Your peace is not betrayal. You may also fear that releasing the person means losing your moral position. Anger can make you feel connected to what is right. It says, "I am angry because I know this should never have happened." That moral clarity is valuable, but you do not need constant emotional suffering to know right from wrong. Compassion does not erase judgment. Buddhist compassion sees the humanity of the person while remaining honest about their actions. It recognizes that harmful behavior often comes from ignorance, greed, fear, pride, craving, or old wounds. Yet it does not pretend that these causes make the harm acceptable. Understanding why someone acted badly is not the same as approving the action. You may understand that a person lied because they feared rejection. The lie still damaged trust. You may understand that someone became controlling because they felt insecure. The control still limited your freedom. You may understand that they were raised around cruelty. Their history still does not give them permission to continue cruelty with you. Understanding can soften hatred without weakening discernment. It allows you to see that the person is more than the worst thing they did, while also recognizing that what they did may make closeness unsafe. This middle path can be difficult because the mind prefers simple categories. It wants to label someone completely good or completely evil. If they are entirely evil, your anger feels justified. If they have good qualities, you may fear that your pain is less valid. But people are complex. A person can be generous in one setting and harmful in another. They can love you in a limited way and still hurt you deeply. They can create joyful memories and later betray your trust. Recognizing complexity does not cancel accountability. You do not need to erase every good memory to protect yourself from the bad pattern. You also do not need to return because goodness existed once. Release allows the whole truth to remain. Another reason people resist letting go is the need to prove that they did not deserve what happened. They think about the event repeatedly, reviewing every action and defending themselves against imaginary accusations. You may ask, was I too demanding? Was I difficult to love? Did I cause them to betray me? Did I somehow invite the disrespect? Self-reflection is useful when it leads to honest growth, but self-interrogation becomes harmful when you assume another person's wrongdoing must have been caused by your weakness. You may have made mistakes. You may have communicated poorly, stayed silent too long, or ignored your own needs. These things may deserve attention, but another person was still responsible for how they chose to respond. Your imperfection did not give them permission to deceive, humiliate, manipulate, or harm you. Two truths can exist together. You can learn where you need to grow, and the other person can remain responsible for their choices. Release does not require you to take the blame that belongs to them. Sometimes self-blame feels easier than accepting that you could not control what happened. If everything was your fault, you can believe that becoming more perfect will prevent all future pain. But no amount of perfection can control another person's character. You can be loyal and still be betrayed. You can be patient and still be mistreated. You can communicate clearly and still be misunderstood. You can give love and still receive selfishness. This does not make your goodness useless. It means goodness is a value you choose, not a tool for controlling others. Releasing the person also means separating their action from your identity. Harm often creates labels that follow you. You may begin to see yourself as the rejected one, the foolish one, the abandoned one, or the person who was not enough. The event becomes more than something that happened. It becomes the answer to who you believe you are. This is one of the deepest ways another person's behavior can continue controlling you. If someone left, you may believe you are unlovable. If someone lied to you, you may believe you are foolish. If someone ignored your needs, you may believe your needs do not matter. If someone treated you as replaceable, you may begin living as though you have no value. But their behavior revealed their choices, limitations, and state of mind. It did not reveal your full worth. Another person's inability to value you is not an accurate measurement of your value. This can take time to understand because emotional injuries often feel personal. Betrayal says, "You were not worth honesty." Abandonment says, "You were not worth staying for." Disrespect says, "You were not worth treating gently." These messages may be felt, but they are not facts. A person's behavior may have been shaped by selfishness, fear, immaturity, addiction, pride, avoidance, or desires unrelated to your worth. Even when a relationship had problems, they still had choices about how to respond. You do not have to carry the identity their action tried to give you. Buddhist teaching reminds us that the self is not a fixed story. You are not permanently defined by one person's decision. The mind may repeat the story until it feels solid, but stories can be observed and released. You can say, "I experienced rejection, but rejection is not my identity. I was betrayed, but betrayal is not the name of my life. I was harmed, but I am more than the harm. This does not deny the event. It places the event inside a larger life. You existed before the person's action. You contain qualities, memories, relationships, abilities, and possibilities that their behavior cannot erase. Release gives these parts of you room to return. You may rediscover interests you abandoned, relationships you neglected, or values that became quiet during the conflict. You may notice that the person occupied so much emotional space that you stopped asking what your own life needed. When they no longer control your attention, your energy becomes available again. This is why release can feel unfamiliar. Pain may have structured your days. You knew what to think about, what to fight, and whom to blame. Without the struggle, a large empty space appears. Do not mistake that space for meaninglessness. It is the beginning of a life no longer organized around the injury. At first, you may not know what to place there. Start with simple things. Return to the people who make you feel safe. Take care of your body. Learn something new. Complete a task that reminds you of your ability. Sit quietly without checking what the other person is doing. These actions may seem small, but they rebuild ownership of your attention. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you possess. Where it goes, your emotional life follows. If it remains fixed on the person who harmed you, they continue receiving energy from a life they no longer deserve to direct. Release is the decision to stop paying that daily cost. This does not mean memories never return. A song, place, date, or conversation may awaken the pain. You may suddenly feel angry after weeks of calm. Do not interpret this as failure. Healing does not require perfect forgetfulness. It requires a different relationship with memory. When the memory appears, acknowledge it. You can say, "Yes, that happened. It was not acceptable. I am safe in this moment, and I do not need to live it again." Then return to the present. You do not need to investigate every feeling. Sometimes the mind wants to turn one painful moment into an entire evening of review. It says that you must understand why the memory appeared, what it means, and whether you are truly healed. Not every return requires deep analysis. Sometimes a memory is simply a memory. Let it pass without creating another story around it. The event may also return when you face something similar. A new person may use a phrase that reminds you of the past. A delay in communication may awaken fear. A small disagreement may feel much larger because your body remembers an older danger. Pause before assuming the same harm is happening again. The past can teach you, but it should not automatically decide the meaning of the present. Look at the facts. Is the new person repeating the same pattern, or has the memory simply made you afraid? Is there real evidence, or are you reacting to resemblance? This careful attention allows the lesson to protect you without allowing the past to control every new relationship. Releasing someone means refusing to make innocent people pay for what another person did. This does not mean you trust quickly. It means you remain fair. You allow new people to reveal who they are through their own actions. You may also need to release the hope that everyone will agree with your account. Some people may defend the person. They may have experienced a different side of them. They may depend on them, fear them, admire them, or prefer comfort over truth. Their disagreement can feel like another injury. You may believe that justice requires universal recognition, but complete agreement may never come. You can know what happened without persuading every person around you. You can choose distance even when others continue the relationship. You can stop explaining to people who are committed to a version that protects their comfort. This is not surrender. It is the recognition that your energy has limits. Use it where truth can create change, protection, or understanding. Do not spend it endlessly trying to enter closed minds. The need to be believed can become another chain to the event. You revisit every detail, gather evidence, and prepare arguments long after doing so serves any practical purpose. Ask what you are hoping to receive. Do you want safety, public correction, emotional validation, or punishment? Some of these may require action. Others may need to be met through trustworthy support rather than endless conflict with the people who refuse to understand. Find those who can listen without turning your pain into debate. A wise friend, counselor, support group, spiritual guide, or trusted family member may help you hold the truth without remaining alone inside it. Being witnessed can be healing, but even the support of others cannot replace your own belief in your experience. There comes a moment when you must stop placing your truth in the hands of every listener. You know what the situation did to you. You know why the boundary became necessary. Let that knowledge become steady within you. Releasing someone can also involve giving up the wish that the past had been different. This may be the hardest part. You may accept that the person is gone, yet still spend years wanting the event itself to disappear. You wish they had chosen honesty. You wish you had recognized the pattern sooner. You wish someone had warned you. You wish the relationship had become what it promised to be. These wishes are natural, but none can change history. Acceptance says, "I would not have chosen this, but this is what happened." That sentence does not approve the event. It stops the argument with reality. When you refuse reality, you remain emotionally positioned before the event, as though a different outcome is still possible. Acceptance places you after it. It allows the next part of your life to begin. You may grieve what was taken, but grief moves differently from resistance. Grief knows something is gone. Resistance keeps demanding its return. Buddhist acceptance is not passive approval. It is clear recognition of what is already true. Without this recognition, wise action is impossible. You cannot protect yourself from a pattern you refuse to name. You cannot rebuild a life while pretending nothing was lost. You cannot release a person while secretly waiting for the past to become acceptable. Name the truth without softening it. What happened was wrong. It caused real harm. I did not deserve that treatment. I cannot change what they chose. I can choose what I carry now. These statements create a complete picture. They honor the wrong without making the wrong your permanent ruler. There may be days when anger feels useful again. It may give you energy to establish a boundary, leave a harmful situation, or speak after a long silence. Anger is not always the enemy. It can reveal that something important has been violated. But anger should become a messenger, not a lifelong master. Listen to what it is showing you. Perhaps it says a boundary is needed, a truth must be spoken, or self-respect has been neglected. Take the useful message, then allow the intensity to settle. When anger remains after its message has been understood, it can begin hurting the person carrying it. It disturbs sleep, tightens the body, changes how you see others, and keeps the nervous system prepared for conflict. The person who caused the injury may be living without thinking about it, while you continue experiencing the physical cost. Releasing anger is not giving them comfort, it is giving your body rest. You deserve a nervous system that is not permanently shaped around someone else's decision. This release may happen gradually. You may first stop speaking about the person every day. Later, you stop checking their life. Then you notice that you no longer create imaginary scenes where they finally regret everything. Eventually, the event becomes part of your history rather than the center of your present. You may never call what happened acceptable. You should not have to. Peace does not require false language. It requires only that you stop giving the event fresh power. One day, you may remember the person and feel a quiet distance. You understand what they did. You recognize what it taught you. You know why they cannot return to the same place in your life, yet you no longer feel pulled toward hatred, proof, or punishment. That quietness is not approval, it is freedom. You are no longer punishing yourself for what someone else chose to do. You are no longer using your own mind as the place where their action repeats. You are no longer allowing their failure to become your identity. They remain responsible for their behavior. You become responsible for your healing. Both truths can stand together. Release does not change the moral meaning of the past. It changes the amount of authority the past holds over your future. What they did was not acceptable. What they did may never be repaired. They may never understand, confess, or face the consequence you believe is fair. Still, your life does not have to remain at the scene of the injury. You can turn toward what remains. You can protect what is still good within you. You can carry the lesson without carrying the person. You can say with complete honesty, I do not approve of what happened, but I refuse to keep living beneath it. Then you take your attention back, your identity back, and your emotional future back. That is not allowing them to escape. That is allowing yourself to leave. And once you take your attention, identity, and emotional future back, one final chain may still remain. You may no longer want the person, the relationship, or the old life, yet part of you may still be waiting for one last answer before you allow yourself to move forward. You may tell yourself that you only need to know why. Why did they change? Why did they lie? Why did they leave without explaining? Why did they promise one thing and choose another? Why did they act as though the relationship meant so little when it meant so much to you? The mind calls this closure. It says, peace will come when the full story is finally revealed. It believes one honest conversation, one apology, one confession, or one missing detail will place everything in order. Until then, it keeps the emotional door partly open. This waiting can continue long after the relationship or situation has ended. You may continue checking your phone, not because you want the person back, but because you want an explanation. You may look at their life from a distance, hoping their actions will reveal what their words never did. You may ask mutual friends what they know. You may replay old conversations, searching for hidden clues. The mind believes it is finishing the story, but sometimes the search for closure becomes another way of staying attached to it. You are no longer holding on to the person directly. You are holding on to the possibility that they will one day explain themselves in a way that finally makes your pain feel complete. This form of attachment is difficult to recognize because it looks reasonable. Wanting an answer seems fair. Wanting an apology seems natural. Wanting truth after confusion does not make you weak. The problem begins when you decide that your life cannot continue until the answer arrives. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering grows when peace is placed behind a condition you cannot control. You say, I will let go when they explain. I will heal when they apologize. I will trust myself again when I understand everything. But each of these conditions depends on another person, another event, or information that may never come. You place your freedom at the end of a road someone else must choose to walk. They may never walk it. Some people avoid explanation because they do not understand their own actions. They may have acted from fear, pride, impulse, confusion, or selfish desire without ever looking deeply at themselves. You may be waiting for a clear answer from someone who has never developed the honesty needed to give one. Others understand what they did, but do not want to face the discomfort of admitting it. An honest explanation would require them to see the pain they caused. It might challenge the image they hold of themselves. It might force them to accept consequences they would rather escape. Silence becomes easier than responsibility. There are also people who will give an answer, but not the truth. They may offer a version that protects their pride, reduces their guilt, or makes their choice appear unavoidable. They may blame circumstances, misunderstandings, stress, or even you. You may finally receive the explanation and discover that it creates more questions than it resolves. This is one reason closure cannot always come from the person who created the confusion. The same lack of honesty that damaged the relationship may also shape the explanation. You may be waiting for medicine from the place where the wound began. That does not mean every explanation is useless. A sincere conversation can help when both people are capable of honesty. A truthful apology may bring relief. Important information can correct painful assumptions, but even the clearest explanation may not remove grief. You may learn exactly why someone left and still feel the loss. You may hear a complete confession and still struggle to trust. You may receive the apology you wanted and discover that it cannot return the years, energy, or confidence you lost. Closure is not simply information. It is the point where you stop requiring more information before you allow the experience to become part of the past. This point may arrive after a conversation, but it does not depend on one. Sometimes the situation has already told you what you need to know. Their repeated dishonesty was an answer. Their refusal to communicate was an answer. Their willingness to lose the relationship rather than change was an answer. Their pattern of disappearing and returning only when they needed something was an answer. You may not have received the words, but you received the behavior. The mind often dismisses behavior because words feel more final. It wants the person to say, "I did not value you properly," "I was selfish," or "I chose what was easier for me." Yet their actions may have already expressed these truths. When words and behavior disagree, behavior usually carries more reliable information. Someone may say they care while repeatedly ignoring your pain. They may say they want to rebuild while avoiding every difficult conversation. They may say they respect you while continuing to cross the same boundary. The mind keeps waiting because it is listening to the promise instead of accepting the pattern. Closure begins when you allow the pattern to speak. This can feel harsh because accepting the pattern may end hope. As long as the explanation has not arrived, part of you can believe there is still a hidden reason that will make everything less painful. Perhaps they were confused, perhaps they were afraid, perhaps someone influenced them, perhaps they loved you deeply but did not know how to show it. Some of these things may be true, but even a true explanation does not erase the effect of repeated behavior. A person may have been afraid and still chosen dishonesty. They may have been wounded and still caused harm. They may have cared in their limited way and still failed to create a healthy relationship. Closure does not require you to choose between seeing their humanity and accepting the damage. You can understand that people act from complicated causes while also recognizing that the result was not safe for you. The question is not only, why did they do it? A more useful question is, what did their actions show me about what this relationship could realistically offer? The first question can lead into endless speculation. The second turns your attention toward evidence. Perhaps the relationship could offer affection, but not stability. Perhaps it could offer promises, but not consistency. Perhaps it could offer closeness when everything was easy, but not honesty when things became difficult. These answers may not satisfy the emotional part of you that wanted something better, but they help you see clearly. Buddhist awareness values clear seeing over comforting fantasy. It does not ask you to invent a cruel story about the other person. It asks you to stop refusing what their behavior has revealed. Sometimes the absence of an answer is itself an answer. Silence may show that the person does not have the courage, care, or willingness to provide closure. Avoidance may reveal how they handle responsibility. Their refusal to respond may teach you more about their character than a polished explanation would. This is painful because silence feels empty. The mind wants something solid to hold. But silence is not always empty. It contains information. It tells you that you cannot build your peace around their participation. It tells you that continuing to wait may only extend the power they hold over your life. It tells you that you must become the person who closes the emotional door. This is internal closure. Internal closure does not mean you pretend to know every hidden detail. It means you accept that you may never know. There is humility in this. The mind dislikes saying, "I do not know," because uncertainty feels unfinished. It prefers an explanation, even a painful one, over open space. That is why people sometimes create stories when facts are missing. You may decide that the person never loved you, that everything was fake, or that there was someone else. These conclusions may be possible, but possibility is not proof. A false answer can feel more comfortable than uncertainty because it gives the mind a place to stop. Yet building closure on an unproven story can create unnecessary suffering. You may wound yourself with details that never happened. You may carry shame based on assumptions. You may turn a confusing event into a complete judgment about your worth. Buddhist wisdom offers a calmer sentence. I may never know every reason. I know enough about the effect and the pattern to choose what is healthy now. This sentence leaves the unknown where it belongs. You do not fill the silence with fantasy. You also do not allow the silence to keep you waiting. The need for closure often becomes strongest when the ending was sudden. A person disappears, changes without warning, or ends a relationship through a short message. Your mind has no gradual path from connection to absence. One day they were part of your daily life. The next day they were gone. The nervous system struggles with such a sharp change. It continues expecting the person. You may reach for your phone, think of something to tell them, or briefly forget that the connection has ended. This does not mean you are failing to accept reality. It means the body is adjusting to a new pattern. A sudden ending leaves many ordinary habits without somewhere to go. The conversation you expected to have tonight, the plan for next week, and the support you believed would remain all disappear together. The mind seeks closure because it wants a bridge between the old reality and the new one. If the other person refuses to build that bridge, you must create it through your own understanding. You can name what changed. You can acknowledge what ended. You can create a clear moment of recognition rather than living in emotional confusion. Say to yourself, "This relationship has ended, even though the ending was not handled with care. I did not receive the conversation I deserved, but the absence is now real." These words may feel severe, but clear pain is often easier to heal than unclear hope. Unclear hope keeps reopening the question. It says the person may return with an explanation. It turns every unknown number, message notification, or chance meeting into a possible ending to the story. You remain prepared for a conversation that may never happen. This preparation can prevent you from fully entering your present life. You may avoid new connections because part of you is still emotionally facing the past. You may keep your schedule, heart, or decisions open in case the person returns. Closure means allowing the ending to become real enough that your life no longer waits around it. This does not mean you must refuse a future explanation if one comes. It means you stop needing it in order to live now. If the person returns months or years later, you can decide whether listening serves your peace. Their arrival does not automatically give them access. Your healing does not become invalid because new information appears. You can hear an explanation without reopening the relationship. You can accept an apology without changing your boundary. You can also decide that hearing the explanation would bring more disturbance than clarity. Many people assume they must listen because they once wanted answers. But the answer may arrive after you have already created peace. You are allowed to protect that peace. Ask yourself why you would listen. Would the information help you make a necessary decision, correct a damaging belief, or complete a healthy process? Or would it pull you back into a pattern you have worked hard to leave? There is no universal answer. The wise choice depends on the person, the history, the type of harm, and your present stability. What matters is that you do not treat the other person's timing as more important than your healing. They may finally be ready to speak, but you may no longer be ready to receive them. Closure belongs to you too. Another form of attachment appears when you keep asking for an apology. You may believe the apology will prove that you were right to feel hurt. Without it, you question whether the pain was valid. But an apology does not create the truth of what happened. If someone stepped on your foot and refused to admit it, the pain would still be real. Their denial would affect trust, but it would not remove the injury. The same is true emotionally. You do not need the person to name the damage before you are allowed to respond to it. This is especially important when dealing with someone who denies, minimizes, or changes the story. Repeatedly asking them to confirm your experience can make you doubt yourself more deeply. Each denial becomes another wound. You may begin bringing more examples, clearer explanations, and stronger evidence. You believe that if you present the truth perfectly, they will finally acknowledge it. But someone committed to self-protection may not be persuaded by evidence. Their refusal may not mean your explanation is weak. It may mean acknowledgement threatens something they are unwilling to face. Internal closure says, I no longer need the person who denied my experience to become the judge of whether it was real. You trust what you observed. You consider your own mistakes honestly. You listen to wise perspectives from people who are not emotionally invested in protecting the harmful pattern. Then you make your decision. This is not stubbornness. It is self-trust built through careful reflection. There is also a difference between closure and certainty. Closure does not mean every question disappears. It means the unanswered questions no longer control your next step. You may still wonder why the person behaved that way. The thought may visit from time to time, but it no longer sends you into hours of searching, checking, or replaying. You can say, I do not know, and I do not need to solve it today. This is a powerful form of peace. The mind may initially resist because it believes an unanswered question remains dangerous. It treats uncertainty like an open wound, but not every unknown needs to be solved. There are things about other people you may never fully understand because you cannot enter their private mind. Even when they explain, they may not know every cause themselves. Human behavior is shaped by many layers: history, fear, desire, habit, timing, pride, unconscious needs, and choices made in moments of weakness. A single answer may never contain the whole truth. Accepting this protects you from expecting one conversation to explain an entire person. The mind often creates a fantasy of closure in which the person speaks with perfect honesty. They understand themselves completely, name every reason, accept all responsibility, and answer every question without defensiveness. Few real conversations are that clean. People hesitate. They remember events differently. They protect certain parts of themselves. They may offer partial truth, mixed motives, or an answer that changes over time. If you expect perfect clarity, even a sincere conversation may disappoint you. Closure becomes possible when you stop demanding that human beings provide perfect explanations for imperfect behavior. You take what is useful, observe what remains inconsistent, and allow the unanswered part to remain unanswered. The need for closure can also hide a wish for reunion. You may tell yourself that you only want answers, but part of you hopes the conversation will restart the connection. This is not something to feel ashamed of. The heart often uses questions as a reason to approach what it still misses. You may believe that once you speak, the person will remember the bond, express regret, or choose differently. Before seeking closure, ask what you truly hope will happen. Would a simple explanation satisfy you if it came with no apology and no invitation to reconnect? Would you still want the conversation if you knew the person would leave immediately afterward? If the answer is no, then you may not be seeking only closure. You may be seeking another chance. Honesty about this can protect you from entering a conversation under a false purpose. You can acknowledge that you still want the relationship without using closure as a doorway back into it. Then you can examine whether returning would be wise based on the full pattern, not only the longing. Sometimes the desire for closure is really the desire to hear that you mattered. You want the person to say that the relationship was real, that they remember the good, and that leaving was not easy. You want proof that you are not foolish for caring. This need is deeply human. When someone leaves coldly, it can make the entire relationship feel false. You begin questioning every memory. You wonder whether the tenderness, promises, and shared moments meant anything, but the ending does not automatically erase everything that came before it. A person may have cared and still lacked the maturity to maintain the relationship. A connection can contain real affection and still become unhealthy. Something meaningful can end badly. You do not need the person to declare the entire past real before you are allowed to honor what you experienced. Your memories belong to you. You can acknowledge that certain moments mattered, while also accepting that the relationship could not continue in a healthy form. This is more balanced than deciding either that everything was perfect or everything was fake. Closure often grows through holding the complete truth. There was love, and there was harm. There were promises, and they were not sustained. I valued the relationship, and I can no longer build my life around it. These statements do not force the past into one simple category. They allow complexity without confusion. Another attachment can form around confession. You may suspect that the person is hiding an important truth. Perhaps you believe there was betrayal, secret behavior, or a decision made long before the ending. You wait for the day they admit it. A confession may provide factual clarity, especially when practical decisions depend on the truth. But emotionally, confession can become a symbol. You believe that if they admit everything, your instincts will be proven right and your self-trust will return. Yet you can begin rebuilding self-trust before they confess. Look at what you noticed. Perhaps there were changes in behavior, contradictions, secrecy, or repeated discomfort. You may not know every hidden fact, but you can respect the signals that told you something was wrong. Self-trust does not mean assuming every fear is correct. It means taking your observations seriously and investigating them with balance. You can say, I may not know the exact secret, but I know the relationship no longer felt honest or safe. That may be enough to guide your choice. Waiting for a confession can keep you mentally tied to the person's private life. You continue studying their actions, hoping for evidence. You become more focused on proving the hidden truth than on rebuilding your own stability. Ask whether the missing detail would change what you need to do now. If the pattern already made trust impossible, the exact detail may not alter the decision. It may only satisfy curiosity while creating fresh images and pain. Not every truth needs to be known in full for a boundary to be valid. Sometimes you know enough. Closure also requires releasing the belief that every story must end neatly. Life does not always provide the final scene the mind expects. People leave mid-conversation, questions remain unanswered. Important relationships end without dignity. This unfinished quality can feel almost unbearable. Stories in books often have clear endings because someone designed them. Real life unfolds through many minds and conditions. No single person controls the final meaning. Buddhist wisdom teaches you to stop demanding that reality behave like a carefully written story. An ending can be incomplete and still be final. You may never know the exact moment someone stopped trying. You may never understand why an opportunity disappeared. You may never receive a reason that feels equal to the pain. The absence of a satisfying ending does not mean you must remain emotionally inside the story. You can choose where your participation ends. This is one of the few forms of control that truly belongs to you. You cannot control the explanation, apology, or confession. You can control whether you continue waiting. You can say, "I did not receive the ending I wanted, but I will create an ending through my own acceptance." Creating internal closure may involve a personal act. You could write the questions that remain unanswered. Then, instead of inventing answers, write what each question has cost you. How much time have I spent asking why? What part of my life has been paused while I waited? What has the situation already shown me? What decision would I make if no further answer ever came? These questions return power to the present. You may also write a final statement that does not require the other person's participation. I release the need for you to explain what your behavior has already revealed. I accept that I may never understand every reason. I will not postpone my peace until you become ready to speak. The words are not magic. Their value comes from the choices that follow. You stop checking. You stop reopening conversations. You stop asking people for new information. You remove small habits that keep the question alive. Closure becomes an action, not only a feeling. You may need to return to this decision many times. The mind may suddenly ask another question. It may say, "But what if there is one detail that changes everything?" Notice the thought without following it. Ask whether anything could truly erase the pattern or remove the effect. New information might change part of your understanding, but it cannot make the lived experience disappear. You can remain open to truth without becoming dependent on it. This is the middle path. You do not pretend to know. You do not endlessly chase what you do not know. You stay grounded in what is already clear. Over time, the questions lose their urgency. They may remain in the background, but they no longer feel like doors you must open. You begin to realize that peace did not come from solving the mystery. It came from deciding that the mystery would no longer control your life. This can bring grief because the need for closure was carrying hope. When you stop waiting for an explanation, you may finally accept that the person may never return in the way you wanted. Let that grief come. Internal closure is not emotionless. It may involve tears, anger, disappointment, and the sadness of realizing that someone could have offered honesty but chose silence. These feelings are part of the release. Do not turn them into new questions. Feel them as they are. This hurts because I deserved a clearer ending. This hurts because I wanted to matter enough for honesty. This hurts because I must close a door I did not open. Pain spoken simply moves more freely than pain wrapped in endless investigation. You may then discover that your deepest need was not for information. It was for respect. The missing explanation symbolized the care you wished they had shown. You wanted the person to recognize your humanity enough to speak honestly. When you understand this, you can stop searching for the perfect answer and begin restoring the respect that was missing. You respect yourself by believing what the pattern revealed. You respect your time by no longer waiting. You respect your emotional life by refusing to return to confusion. The other person may not have given you a respectful ending, but you can give yourself one. This is not the same as pretending you never cared. It is caring enough about yourself to stop living in the place where their silence left you. Eventually, closure becomes less about the other person and more about your relationship with reality. Can you accept that some parts of life will remain unexplained? Can you allow an unanswered question to exist without making it the center of your days? Can you trust yourself to live wisely, even without complete certainty? These are not small questions. They touch the heart of Buddhist practice. The mind wants to secure itself through knowledge. It believes that if it understands everything, it will never be hurt in the same way again. But complete knowledge is impossible. Wisdom is not knowing every answer. Wisdom is knowing how to remain steady when an answer is absent. You learn from what is available. You notice cause and effect. You protect yourself through discernment. Then you release the demand to see inside every hidden place. This freedom extends beyond relationships. You may seek closure after a missed opportunity, a family conflict, an unexpected loss, or a dream that failed without a clear reason. You ask why life moved in that direction. Sometimes no answer will feel enough because the pain is larger than explanation. You can spend years asking why something happened, or you can begin asking what the present needs from you now. The second question does not deny the first. It simply moves your life forward. Perhaps the present needs rest. Perhaps it needs a boundary, a new plan, support, courage, or acceptance. These are things you can act on. Why often looks backward. What now turns gently toward life. This does not mean you never reflect on causes. Understanding can prevent repeated harm. But once reflection stops producing useful insight, the question may have completed its purpose. Continuing to ask becomes attachment. You will know the difference by how the question affects you. A useful question brings clarity, direction, or learning. An attached question circles the same ground and leaves you more exhausted. When you notice the circle, step out. Say, I have asked this before. No new truth is appearing. I choose to return to what I can live now. This simple practice may need to happen many times. Each return weakens the belief that peace is hidden inside the missing answer. One day, you may discover that the silence no longer feels like an open wound. It becomes a fact among many facts. The person never explained, the apology never came, the confession remained absent. And still, you lived, you learned, you changed. You found moments of peace that did not require their participation. This is how internal closure reveals itself. Not through one dramatic moment, but through the quiet return of your life. You stop checking the door. You stop rewriting the ending. You stop asking the person who left to tell you when you are allowed to leave too. You understand that closure was never something they held in their hands. They may have held information, but your freedom was always deeper than information. Your freedom was the ability to accept what the situation had already shown you, release what it refused to explain, and choose your next step without certainty. Sometimes the absence of an answer is the answer. It may tell you that the person cannot meet you with honesty. It may show that the relationship has reached its limit. It may reveal that waiting will only keep you tied to someone who has already chosen distance. Listen to that silence without inventing a story around it. Then let it become final enough for you to live. You may never receive the ending you deserved, but you can stop giving the missing ending control over the rest of your story. You can close the chapter without every sentence being complete. You can place the unanswered questions down. You can turn toward the life that is still speaking to you now. That is closure created from within. And once you stop waiting for another person to give you closure, a deeper truth may rise. Perhaps you remained emotionally tied to them, not only because you wanted answers, but because you believed it was your responsibility to help them heal. This belief can feel like love. You see their wounds, fears, habits, and hidden pain. You remember the softer person they sometimes become. Because you understand what exists beneath their behavior, you begin to believe that enough patience, loyalty, sacrifice, or kindness will finally change them. so you stay longer than your peace can afford. You explain yourself more gently, forgive more quickly, and reduce your needs so they do not feel pressured. You become careful with every word because you fear upsetting them. You carry burdens they refuse to face because leaving seems cruel. What began as compassion slowly becomes emotional captivity. Buddhist teachings encourage compassion, but compassion does not mean taking ownership of another person's healing. Every human being must eventually face their own mind, choices, habits, and consequences. You may support someone, but you cannot choose honesty for them. You may offer guidance, but you cannot create willingness. You may love them deeply, but your love cannot perform the inner work they continue avoiding. Healing requires participation. A person must become willing to examine their behavior, accept responsibility, tolerate discomfort, and practice new choices repeatedly. You cannot do this from outside them. Even when they understand what must change, they may still refuse the effort change demands. A moment of regret is not the same as transformation. Someone may apologize sincerely during a crisis and return to the same behavior once the danger of losing you passes. They may promise to seek help, communicate better, or stop repeating the pattern. Yet promises only reveal intention. Consistent actions reveal whether healing has truly begun. Many caring people become trapped by another person's potential. You see who they could become and begin living as though it is your duty to bring that person forward. But potential belongs to the person carrying it. You can recognize it and encourage it, yet you cannot turn it into character through your sacrifice. Your patience cannot replace their discipline. Your understanding cannot replace their honesty. Your love cannot replace their decision. When you forget this, compassion can become another form of control. You may not be trying to dominate them, but you are still attempting to create a result through your effort. You believe that if you remain calm enough, give enough, or endure enough, they will eventually become different. Buddhist wisdom teaches a humbler form of love. You act kindly without believing kindness gives you control over the outcome. You offer support while respecting that the person may use it wisely, waste it, or reject it completely. This requires understanding the difference between support and rescue. Support helps a person face responsibility. Rescue helps them escape it. Support listens while encouraging action. Rescue listens to the same promises while cleaning up every consequence. Support respects the person's ability to choose. Rescue assumes everything will collapse unless you take over. Look carefully at what happens after you help. Does the person become more responsible, honest, and willing to act? Or do they return to the same behavior because your help removed the discomfort that might have taught them? Consequences are painful, but they can also be necessary teachers. A person may need to experience distance after repeated disrespect. They may need to lose trust after dishonesty. They may need to face the practical cost of careless choices. When you remove every consequence, you may also remove the lesson. This does not mean becoming cold or enjoying their suffering. It means recognizing that not every discomfort should be taken away. Some pain reveals where change is needed. The kindest response is not always another rescue. Sometimes it is a clear no. You may need to say, "I care about you, but I cannot solve this for you." They may accuse you of being selfish, uncaring, or disloyal. Their reaction may awaken guilt because you have learned to measure love by how much pain you are willing to carry. But love is not proven by endless self-abandonment. Sacrifice can be meaningful when it is freely chosen, limited, and connected to a healthy purpose. It becomes harmful when your entire life becomes smaller so another person can avoid facing theirs. You may lose sleep, money, friendships, opportunities, and peace. You may hide their behavior, defend their choices, and keep secrets that slowly isolate you. Healthy love should not require one person to disappear so the other person never has. To grow. You may have learned the rescuer role early in life. Perhaps you grew up around someone whose emotions controlled the home. You learned to watch their mood, prevent conflict, and keep everyone calm. Their anger became your responsibility, and their sadness became your signal to work harder. Later, you may enter relationships where you repeat the same role automatically. You notice distress and feel an urgent need to fix it. You assume that if someone is disappointed, you must have done something wrong. Buddhist awareness helps you see the boundary between two minds. You can care about another person's emotion without taking ownership of it. They may feel hurt, and your decision may still be wise. They may become angry, and their anger may still be theirs to manage. This does not remove your responsibility for your own behavior. When you act carelessly, you should listen, apologize, and repair what belongs to you. But another person's discomfort is not automatic proof that your boundary is wrong. People often feel abandoned when you stop rescuing them. They may feel rejected when you ask them to become responsible. Their pain may be real, but it does not mean you must return to the old role. Compassion must include you too. Your body deserves rest. Your mind deserves quiet. Your time and future have value. You are not outside the circle of people worthy of kindness. When compassion always moves toward the other person and never toward you, resentment begins to grow. You may continue helping while feeling trapped, unseen, and exhausted. Then you feel ashamed because you believe a loving person should give without frustration. Resentment often signals that your help is no longer freely given. You are giving from guilt, fear, obligation, or the belief that everything depends on you. Instead of attacking yourself, listen to what the resentment is revealing. Ask what you are doing that the other person could reasonably do for themselves. Ask what consequences you keep preventing. Ask what needs you have abandoned because their pain always seems more urgent. You may discover that being needed has become part of your identity. The role of rescuer gives you purpose. You are the strong one, the reliable one, the person who never leaves. Without that role, you may wonder whether anyone will value you. But being needed is not the same as being loved. Someone may depend on what you provide while remaining unwilling to respect, understand, or support you. They may call when they need comfort and disappear when you need care. Healthy love does not depend on one person remaining broken and the other remaining useful. It allows care to move in both directions. You should be valued for your presence, not only your service. Releasing responsibility for someone's healing may therefore require releasing the identity of the fixer. This can feel frightening because people may praise your strength and selflessness. Yet strength is not measured only by how much you can carry. Sometimes strength means recognizing what was never yours to carry. Another person may tell you that they cannot manage without you. They may say you are the only one who understands them or the only reason they remain stable. These words create intense pressure. Their dependence may be real, but no individual should become another person's entire emotional foundation. Healthy support includes wider resources such as trusted family, community, professional help, spiritual guidance, and the person's own effort. You can care while saying, "I cannot be the only person you depend on." If they reject every form of support except the one that gives them constant access to you, pay attention. Dependence is not always proof of deep love. Sometimes it allows a person to avoid building responsibility and resilience. You may also face someone who repeatedly complains about pain while rejecting every step that requires effort. They ask for advice, then dismiss every suggestion. They seek comfort, but become defensive when you speak honestly. Pain does not always mean readiness to heal. Some people want relief without change. You can listen with compassion, offer appropriate support, and then return the next step to them. You may say, I care about what you are facing, but I have shared what I can. The decision now belongs to you. The silence after that statement may feel cruel. Do not rush to fill it. That silence gives the person space to meet themselves. Buddhist teachings remind us that actions create conditions. A dishonest person damages trust. An avoidant person loses intimacy. A person who refuses help continues carrying pain that love alone cannot remove. Their continued suffering does not always mean you failed them. Sometimes it means they have not chosen the path their healing requires. This is especially difficult with family. You may ask how you can rest while someone you love is struggling, but your exhaustion does not automatically reduce their suffering. When you become depleted, care may turn into resentment, fear, control, or collapse. Define what you can genuinely provide. Perhaps you can listen for a limited time, but cannot receive calls throughout every night. Perhaps you can help with one practical need, but cannot keep paying for repeated careless decisions. Perhaps you can attend an appointment, but cannot force them to follow the advice. A smaller promise kept with peace is better than a larger promise kept with bitterness. The person may say you used to care more. You can answer, I still care, but I need to help in a way that is healthy for both of us. You are not giving up on their worth. You are giving up the belief that you can control their healing. There may be grief in admitting that your love could not save them. You may have spent years believing your patience would become the turning point. Accepting your limits can make that effort feel wasted. It was not meaningless. You offered real love and learned important truths. But meaning does not require endless continuation. Something can matter and still need to end. You do not have to sacrifice more years to prove that the years already given were valuable. Sometimes stepping back becomes the only honest action left. You may need to leave while the person is still unhealed, angry, or unwilling to understand. Waiting until they approve your boundary gives them control over when your life can continue. You are allowed to step away before they are ready. Guilt may return when you hear that they are struggling. Before responding, ask whether your help would support responsibility or restart the old cycle. Ask whether you are acting from calm care or fear of blame. You may still choose to help. Releasing responsibility does not mean refusing all support. It means giving only what is wise, clear, and sustainable, then releasing the result. They may use your help well or waste it. They may appreciate you or criticize you. Your responsibility ends where their choice begins. As this truth settles, your compassion becomes cleaner. You no longer give in order to receive change. You no longer stay because you need proof that your sacrifice worked. You offer kindness because it is wise, and you stop when continuing would become harmful. You can care without clinging. You can help without taking over. You can step back without hatred. Another person's healing belongs to them. Your healing belongs to you. Sometimes the most loving truth you can offer is this: I hope you heal, but I understand now that I cannot do it for you. Then you release the responsibility, keep the compassion, and allow both lives to continue on their own paths. You do not become free by controlling every outcome, receiving every apology, or saving every person. Freedom begins when you release the future you expected, stop fighting conversations that are already over, forgive without reopening harmful doors, and accept that letting go does not make another person's actions acceptable. Some answers may never come, some people may never change, and some problems may remain beyond your control. But your peace does not have to remain trapped with them. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that you can care without carrying, love without controlling, and walk away without hatred. You are not responsible for changing another person, forcing closure, or making life follow your plans. Your responsibility is to act wisely, protect your peace, and return your attention to the life that still exists. If you are ready to release what no longer belongs in your heart, write, "I choose peace over control," in the comments. Let those words become the first step toward your freedom. Subscribe to the channel for more Buddhist wisdom that helps you live with greater peace, clarity, and strength.